Classes in session, hitting the books, college football betting show on the air once again, Monday, October 21st, and it is week 9 already in the college football season. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack with you, ready to break it down. Coming off a very fun, entertaining weekend, highlighted, of course, by Georgia versus Texas. And just when you think Texas has clearly established themselves as maybe the best team in the country, the team to beat to win the national championship, Georgia says, oh, not so fast. That was a pretty damn impressive beat down by Georgia, owning the line of scrimmage. I have never seen Texas this year struggle along both sides of the line of scrimmage as they did on Saturday night against Georgia. The O-line was beaten up. Quinn Ewers was running for his life. No pass protection whatsoever. That pass rush for Georgia was fierce all night. Couldn't get the run game going. And then on the defensive side of the football, wasn't really all that great from Texas either. Beck had time. They got the run game going from ETN as well throughout that football game. It was just a very, very impressive, dominant win for the Georgia Bulldogs, and clearly making amends for a tough night that they had against Alabama just a few weeks ago, Connor. Very impressive, Georgia. And that was a statement by Georgia, says, we're in this damn national championship hunt still. You better believe it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, a team's relishing it. I mean, Texas has looked unbelievable. That's why they were the favorites. I mean, we talked about they hadn't played really anybody, and even the down Michigan, some of these teams that they had played, and we just saw what Michigan did. You know,
we just saw what Oklahoma did. The other big win for Texas, against South Carolina,
Well, that's why we try to bring it up, and I was hoping, I wish I went way bigger on that game.
Yeah, you start to connect the dots. I should have been on Georgia. I really should have after seeing.
Well, I did Oklahoma in the end, but.
Yeah,
but the one thing Georgia did, even I was talking with Kat, they jumped on it, which they had been so pathetic first half. That was their best first half of football, so they were pumped for it. I was hoping maybe Texas scored because I was going to hammer them then again, but I'm glad I got in at least before on them a bit. But yeah, just they came to play, knew it. I mean, you heard Kirby after the game, all the talk. They're dogs. They've already lost how bad they've been, all this shit. You know, Yeah, dogs were dogs. So. But it was a pretty good week. It was wild. It was up and down for me. I had a very good middle of the afternoon. I went 4-1. Ohio was my only loss, but had a couple shitty losses. Arkansas, Rutgers used to lay under points. That would chase garbage, looking like Joe Montana out there.
Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Rutgers had missing players on defense, obviously, but I mean, I didn't think you'd see a team like that just go up and down on them. That was crazy. But yeah, it was a decent week, so let's get back at it. I know we got to get going.
We'll get to that with Rutgers USC, which is, by the way, Fox has lucked out big time getting a Yankees-Dodgers World Series because they planned it all along that pretty good chance at least the Dodgers are going to be in the World Series this year. They had the game 1 of the World Series scheduled for Friday night this week, that they wanted to line up a LA-based college football team after the World Series to be able to show that on Fox right after game 1. And now they've got their dream. The Dodgers in the World Series, game 1 Friday night on Fox at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And then after that, and they probably hope that the World Series audience, a lot of them stick around for the game after, they're showing Rutgers at USC Friday night on Fox, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, after the World Series game. So the big Friday night for Fox. The main network here, and they've kind of lined it up that way, no doubt. And yes, the collision course for Navy and Army continue. They are still undefeated. If you ask me, I still think Army's been a little bit more impressive than Navy. Not to take anything away from Navy, but to me, what Army is doing with Daly and that offense is just ridiculous. They're scoring on almost every possession right now. They got a coach fired. That Army team this past week as East Carolina fires Mike Houston following that. And what a disappointing season it's been for East Carolina. But yes, Navy and Army, man, very real now. We can start thinking about now they both have to play Notre Dame still, which is by far the toughest opponent for both of those teams. And Navy has to play them this weekend coming up. So that's the stumbling block potentially for both of these teams. But if they can get over the Notre Dame hurdle, both of those teams, then we're talking about definitely playoff potential, AAC championship potential. I've got Army in pocket at plus 900 to win the AAC. That price is long gone right now. But yeah, exciting, and it's cool to see the service academy teams, Navy and Army, having these kind of undefeated seasons so far. Both of them 13-0 combined as of now. All right, let's get into the card. We got a big one for this week. A lot of weeknight games again, starting with, of course, Conference USA action. Sam Houston State and Florida International. Sam Houston State, about a 5.5-point road favorite in this game, 46.5 the total. Sam Houston, a couple of those games last week for me. I'm on teams that lost their quarterbacks to injury, last week on the same night. Sam Houston and Florida International, both of these teams, and they're facing each other here, they lost their quarterback early in the game. Hunter Watson got injured for Sam Houston. Jace Bauer came in, and the offense couldn't do anything after that against Western Kentucky last week in that very, very important game. So that was disheartening. And then Florida International against UTEP, Kewan Jenkins goes down early in the game. They go to their backup, who was awful for the rest of the game, and there they are getting beaten by UTEP, who had been terrible prior to last week. So both of these teams had to deal with losing their starting quarterback to injury early in the game last week. If you're looking at this week, the quarterback status for both of these teams, it's looking like for Sam Houston, Hunter Watson is questionable, hasn't been ruled out. It's going to be a game-time decision for him. Same goes with Kewan Jenkins for the FIU Golden Panthers. He left that game very early against UTEP. Amari Jones took over. And the funny thing about Amari Jones is he also got banged up and left that game late. So they ended up being down to Hayden Carlson at the end of that game. At quarterback for FIU against UTEP. So they actually got down to their third-string quarterback. The problem I have with Florida International, and I like them usually in the underdog role, but I don't know if this is a good matchup. They cannot stop the run still. The run defense is a big problem for Florida International. You're going to get a heavy dose of that from Sam Houston State. They run the football quite a bit. They're pretty good at it when they're on their game, and I think that's probably a tough matchup. To me, the matchup screams Sam Houston. They obviously... They probably could have won that game if Watson doesn't get hurt, but you could see there was a big drop off. Bauer came in and the offense just stopped for the Bearcats last week against Western Kentucky. If they have Watson back, off a loss, they are still the better of these two teams. I could make a case to lay the points. I don't know if I will. I think I like the over potentially more, but again, for that to happen, I need Jenkins in at quarterback for FIU because the two guys that were in that game against UTEP last week were terrible after Jenkins left the game. So if it's Jenkins, I like the full game over. Jenkins doesn't play, I probably like more the team total over for Sam Houston because I think they're probably going to end up putting up points and run the football with a great deal of success against a pretty soft, pretty poor FIU run defense. So what do you think here, Connor? Sam Houston, FIU.
Oh, man, yeah. These are got kind of an ugly one. And it is because you mentioned the quarterbacks being out. It showed in the second half when Watson was out. I mean, it was a total difference. I mean, Bauer, he threw for 100 yards. They didn't do anything. They did not score. And Western Kentucky, 14-0. I leaned their way, but obviously, you don't know Watson's going to get took it out. And it wasn't a game I bet in the end. And same with Florida International. When Jenkins goes, and then they get down to their third string, and the offense just can't do anything. And then you let a team like UTEP, who hadn't scored 30 all year, score 30 on you. You know what I mean? And they were able to do it. And Saul, they 200 pass yards from Locklear back in. I remember 160, but they had about 200 on the ground. Jackson had a big game for UTEP. So this is tough. Normally, like last year, this game was tight. I believe it went to OT in this one. And Jenkins didn't play. Did he play? I had this up earlier real quickly while I glanced at it. Did he play for effort? He did.
Yep. He did.
He did.
Yep.
190 and a touchdown.
Yep.
So just the question marks the quarterback in this game. Like it's a little tough to kind of handicap and give it to you. And I think Florida International, if they're not playing and maybe Watson does play, take him. See if you can get in on Sam Houston. If he doesn't play, then yeah, this game could kind of just be an ugly one. But I couldn't take FIU. I think you need more than a touchdown, maybe to look even their way. So a tough one. As we see in teams like Sam Houston, just a little bit different, then okay, more at home, better at laying points. You start laying almost a touchdown on the road. It's not always the best spot for these teams that aren't great. So look out. A lot of injury, a lot of watch for this one till tomorrow,
Yeah, and this game's Tuesday night, so it's tomorrow night. This gets the week started.
Right.
One of the games on Tuesday night, so make sure you keep that in mind. But definitely It's a situation where you want to keep an eye on the quarterback situation, really for both teams, because it's up in the air. UTEP, Louisiana.
And it's tough
Tech.
to get that info real quick. I mean, this is just to get information on who's playing in college football. You got to do the digging, and still, even that, these coaches are so tight-lipped. Do your best.
Exactly.
I do mine.
I follow a shit ton of beat writers from the Group of 5 conferences, and they don't even give me the help I need.
And they don't.
Because they don't hear anything. They don't hear shit from these coaches about playing status. It's one of the frustrating parts you got to deal with about handicapping college football. And if you think it's bad with college football, it's going to be 10 times worse once we get into college basketball. I mean, good luck with that. I mean, that is a sport where historically it's just you think someone's out, they're in. You think someone's in, they're out. It happens all the freaking time in college sports, especially basketball, which, of course, is only a few weeks away as well. UTEP, Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech, 7-point favorites, 50 the total. Is also a Tuesday night game here in Conference USA. UTEP, you look at them and you thought, boy, off the bye week, they get hammered by Sam Houston. Following week, they get hammered by Western Kentucky. Maybe this team's just not going to show a pulse. I don't know if they showed a pulse or did they take advantage of Kewan Jenkins' injury, because, as I said, the Jones and Carlson, the two other quarterbacks for FIU, what were they, 10 for 17 with 3 interceptions? Pretty bad. They couldn't run the football. I'll give UTEP's run defense credit. The run defense was pretty solid, and UTEP's run game was very strong as well with Javon Jackson, and I think that was the difference. And like with the game we just talked about with Sam Houston, if Sam Houston can run the football, they can have success. If UTEP is going to have any sort of success offensively here, they have to be able to run the football, I think, to be able to have success. And when you look at Louisiana Tech on the defensive side of the football, it's Louisiana Tech team that's actually been pretty solid against the run. Skylar Locklear was the quarterback last week for UTEP. Cade McConnell was ruled out due to injury. He was solid, 14 for 23. A lot of it, though, was support of a great ground game, though, against FIU last week. The ground game worked, and it took a lot of pressure off Locklear. If he's got to throw the ball more, and La Tech does have solid run defense numbers, will they be able to have success? That's going to end up being the question. Meanwhile, you look at Louisiana Tech. While I've got questions about the UTEP offense and the run game working, is this a team I want to lay 7 with, Louisiana Tech? Not really. I mean, other than beating down a wretched Middle Tennessee team, this team laying points hasn't been that great at all. They lose outright against Tulsa laying points. They lose outright at Florida International laying points. The one time they laid points and covered was that Middle Tennessee State game. And then last week, 12-point road favorites at New Mexico State. They lose 33-30. Hell of a football game that was. Back and forth, crazy ending, went to overtime, and Louisiana Tech falls. If UTEP showed me a little pulse, and they actually get a win out of it too, not just that they showed some life and they competed. They got their first win of the year, maybe a little bounce in their step. I get it. They're 0-4 on the road this year, UTEP, and on the road, they've been blasted by double digits in every game. Yeah. But I don't trust Louisiana Tech laying 7. I think if I had to, I'd play the dog here. CMAC, what do you think here? UTEP, La Tech.
Another beauty here midweek. But you can find stuff as we get in this, and even tomorrow, I'll look into maybe even trying to get a prop if I find something in this game. Yeah, UTEP, we already hit on it. Locklear was solid. They got the running game going. And they were at home. You hit it right there before. The 0-4 on the road just kind of keeps me at a pause. The one game I ended up taking, as much as I kind of said Monday, but as I sat there, the one spot where New Mexico State had done well was at home, man. So I was like, as much as I ragged Tony Sanchez, I go, I'm going to take these 12.5 points. And they were able to get it done. And that La Tech defense on the road, the two quarterbacks, Nunez even had 50. They had 200 passing yards. They ran it. They ran for about 160, 165 on La Tech. But now they're back at home. This is the better spot for them. I mean, Bullock is what he is. I mean, what was he? 22 of 41. 233.
He's been solid.
He's been solid. You want to lay a touchdown? They are at home. I think they're the team here. And can you take anything off that UTEP win from home? Because when they've gone on the road and anytime else, this team's just been so flat. It's been crazy. I don't know if this is enough to even look at the dog, and I don't know if I can look at La Tech at 7.5.
I might consider I mean, with the over here, UTEP plays slow. Louisiana Tech has slowed things down. Well, actually, they were a little bit. They go back and forth. They speed it up at times, but they can go slow as well. But the fact
They
remains,
can.
UTEP defensively is still not very good. Louisiana Tech offensively, I think a little bit better than their defense. They kind of showed that last week with the New Mexico State loss. I mean, giving up 33 points to New Mexico State is not very good. So I maybe get there with over 49.5, 50. It's a low enough number. We might see
UTEP's
that.
got to do their part.
Yeah,
I
that's the
think
key.
in that event, that is the key. If they could score, if they score 20, I think it maybe could, but I don't know if that's in the cards.
Well, they gave
And
up 40.
Lawtex dominated the series.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I'll tell you what, I was on the over in the last UTEP road game at Western Kentucky. They gave up 44. So I think there's a chance maybe this one can get up and over the total here. All right, let's move to Wednesday night. We've got Liberty taking on Kennesaw State. We've got Liberty 24-point road favorites, 46 the total. I said this on Twitter X, and sometimes over exaggerations can happen, and sometimes it's you blow things a little out of proportion. There's no blowing it out of proportion with that Kennesaw State Middle Tennessee State game last week. That was the ugliest game and probably the ugliest betting winner and point spread winner I've ever had in my lifetime. Honestly, that I covered with Kennesaw State last week is a sheer miracle in that game, because the offense spent the better part of 4 quarters against one of the worst defenses in college football, Middle Tennessee State, which shows how bad Kennesaw's offense is. They spent almost 4 fucking quarters barely able to complete a forward pass, barely able to get one first down in that football game. And somehow is 10, 10 and a half, 9.5 point dogs. They squeaked out a point spread cover for me last week against Middle Tennessee State. Had to be the ugliest, most disgraceful football game I've seen in a very long time. It was pathetic on both sides. Middle Tennessee wasn't much better. 14 points. One of them was a punt return touchdown. They did have the only offensive touchdown of the game, but the other one came on a punt return. So it's not like Middle Tennessee's offense was anything great. I do feel bad for Kennesaw's defense. Kennesaw's defense actually has been decent at times, but this offense, man, it doesn't even matter anymore. Khalib Johnson, Braden Bohannon, Ian Cameron, Connor Mack, probably put them in there, put us in there too. This offense, the offensive line's bad. There's no run game to speak of. The quarterback play is horrendous. 103 passing yards between the 2 QBs last week and 2 interceptions. And the problem for Kennesaw is, look, you can get away with scoring 5 points and covering the point spread against Middle Tennessee. Score 5 points in this game against Liberty, you're not covering the point spread. That's going to end up, and even though you're 24-point dogs, you're going to have a very difficult time if that's the offense you're going to bring to the table. It was offensive watching that Kennesaw State. They were offensive, all right, offensive in the bad sense of the word last week against Middle Tennessee. Meanwhile, Liberty, ugly win against FIU a couple weeks ago. We haven't seen them play in a couple weeks. They're off a bye. Jamie Chadwell's team, 31-24 against FIU. They needed overtime to win that game, so it wasn't pretty. And there's been something about Liberty, CMAC, as double-digit favorites they've been terrible. Let's call it out for what it is. They're 0-4 against the numbers, double-digit chalk this year, the Liberty Flames. So this has not been their price range, especially on the road now, where we've seen them at times have these lethargic, lackluster performances. Their one and only road game before this one was at New Mexico State, similar price range, 22-point road favorites. They won by 6. It was life and death to escape with the win. So I don't want no part of this. I can't take Kennesaw again after what I saw last week. That offense is wretched, and if that's the offense they have here, they're going to have a tough time covering. But Liberty's been a disaster as double-digit favorites, 0-4 ATS this year. So pass. There's no reason to get involved here for me. CMAC, what do you think?
Yeah, someone just put it in your Dom in the chat. Like, I kind of, if you gave that to me, I'd say, yeah, Liberty's team total. I mean, it's 34.5. But I don't know. Like, Jacksonville, they should just be able to run it here. This Kennesaw defense, bottom of the barrel against the pass and the run. They give up 187 on the ground. But other than that, the Jacksonville State, who got 63. I mean, San Jose State at 31, ULL 34. UTSA just had 28. These are all the home games for them.
Somehow Middle Tennessee couldn't run it on Kennesaw last week.
Yeah, and all of a sudden,
run game for them. Yeah,
Middle Tennessee doesn't have this offense. That's great, but I don't know what to do here. Kennesaw State, I don't know how they score. It's good, and both these teams have been dreadful. I mean, as Liberty's 5-0, but 1-4 ATS to hit on, they're not making you any money, especially laying this number. Can this get going finally this week? Like this, if you're ever going to say this would be the team, the 0-6 and 1-5 ATS, Kennesaw, who, like you just talked about, luckily covered or put, depending on where you got the number. I mean, this is tough. Like, this isn't the Liberty of last year where you could just pencil this in and it seems like you'd win, like a team total or even cover the number. They for sure win, but 24.5. I can't take Kansas. I just can't do it. No. Like, I can't. I just can't take them as
last week. I'm going to take that money and run Steve Miller Band style, and that's it. I'm not coming back this week.
I don't blame you. I don't know
no
how
trip
they get
to Kennesaw for this guy this week. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a struggle, whether it was Johnson or Bohannon back there. I mean, whew. And Johnson had a couple picks.
Oh, yeah.
Too. Can we see a breakout like from Liberty? It's like it just hasn't been there.
They could, because they are off a bye, Liberty. And I don't think Liberty and Chadwell, the coach, is going to be thrilled with the way they played against FIU.
They are, FIU.
Yeah.
But that's been every week, but man, I mean, he said that against East Carolina because I thought, maybe, I mean, I'm glad I've stayed off. I haven't been on Liberty all year. But, I mean, these were home games for them. Like, whether it was the UTEP, ECU, FIU, just, you know, they should get – I mean, I'd look, if I had to, I'd take that team total, 34.5 maybe, if I had to get here.
Yeah, Salter's regressed a little bit. I agree 100%, Dom. He's not playing like he did last year.
He's just kind of going through
Salter. Yeah,
the motions a little bit. I don't know. Maybe these kids, you know, not a lot of maybe hope to prove. Who knows?
I think they look bored at times. You know, New Mexico, UTEP. I mean, they played some. This has been a weak-ass schedule. They haven't played anybody good. And East Carolina was supposed to be good, and they haven't been. And now here's another one. Is this going to stimulate the kids to win in beat-down fashion by 4 touchdowns of playing lowly Kennesaw? Is that going to get them excited? A trip to Kennesaw? That's a concern, too. You got to have in the back of your mind laying these points.
For sure.
All right, next up, Middle Tennessee and Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State, 21-point home favorite, 63.5 the total. Here in this game. I mean, right away, the over kind of appeals to me in this game. Jacksonville's offense, obviously, it's cooking right now, and that's an understatement. 5 of their last 6 games have gone over the total here, so 5-1 to the over this season so far. They've scored 44, 63 against Kennesaw. Just shut down Middle Tennessee and held them to 1 offensive touchdown. That same Kennesaw defense gave up 63 to Jacksonville State just a couple of weeks ago. And then, of course, they put a 54 spot on New Mexico State as well. I mean, Tyler Huff's been good throwing the ball. Run. This guy can run. My goodness. Last game against Kennesaw, he had 176 yards on the ground. Trey Stewart, the great running back as well. I mean, they've got a quarterback and running back RPO deal. They play fast, as they always do under Rich Rod. This is a very good offensive football team, and they got the run game going. Like I said, they got Huff running it. They've got Huff being able to do enough in the passing game at quarterback, and then they got Trey Stewart as well, really strong running back. So, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've talked about Jacksonville State overs, full game, Jacksonville State team totals over. You got to believe they're going to have a good chance to go over at least their team total here. Middle Tennessee's been a horrible defense. Well, until they played an awful Kennesaw offense, they've been a horrible defense. I think Kennesaw's offense just made Middle Tennessee's defense look good last week. Now you're facing a real offense again, and we can't forget the fact that Middle Tennessee, take out the Kennesaw game, they give up 45 to Duke, 49 to Western Kentucky, 48 to Louisiana Tech. They've been shredded, especially in some of these road games too, and a lot of those games have gone over the total. So last year these teams played, it was 45-30 Jacksonville State. They scored 45. The game flew over the total. I would say just keep it simple here. And you can lay the 21 as well. But, you know, Vadiato in the Middle Tennessee offense at times can be decent. I would certainly lean to laying the points, but I prefer just the team total over instead for Jacksonville State, because I think they can get 40s, if not 50s, and probably the full game over 63.5 as well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. What's been cashing repeatedly? Jacksonville State team totals over, full game overs with Jacksonville State, 5-1 on the season. So that's where I'm looking here. CMAC, what do you think? MTSU, Jacksonville State.
Yeah, the offense has just finally got humming, you know, and this team's been just one of the better over teams even this year, 5-1. It's kind of if it's don't broke, and I think so too. Like, why mess around? I mean, you want to lay the 21 on the hook here, or just take their team total. It seems like they could get there. They are off the bye too, right? Here they've had some rest.
Believe
Jacksonville
me, that's
State,
true. Yes, you're
yeah,
correct. Yep.
man. The running attack's been good, and Middle Tennessee, of course, just the defense has been dreadful. One of the
Now there is
worst
one
all
little
year
fly
long.
in this ointment for Jacksonville State. Their next game after this one is at Liberty. Huge game.
Yeah,
But
big
off a
game. But
bye,
I
I think
think
they take care of business here. And Middle Tennessee defensively might be powerless to stop them. I hear you.
Yeah, I just don't know how this defense ranked 130th. They've been horrible. It's the pass. I guess maybe where you're putting it against the run, but they still give up almost 170. Uh, yeah, I think there's points. I don't mind Jacksonville State's team total too. So
Yeah, and MTSU is one of these defenses where it doesn't matter whether you're a pass-heavy team or a run-heavy team. You're going to be able to do what you want. They're bad run
yeah,
defense. They're equally bad. They're actually an even worse pass defense, but they're bad both ways.
Vadiato last year had some success. Throwing it against this Jacksonville State team. So maybe just the dead over here.
Yep.
Like one thing, like
He
even
did light
watching
them up last
Kennesaw
year,
get
Vadiato.
24.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. Watching Kennesaw even get 24. I know they gave up 63, but like I don't know how great this defense is. I think it's maybe gotten a little bit better, but yeah, I think you could just go full game over here.
Yeah, but how much can you make of Southern Miss, Kennesaw, and New Mexico, the last three opponents on offense for Jacksonville State's defense? That's the thing. And that does concern me. But now, I don't know if Middle Tennessee's all that much better, but Middle Tennessee, their last road game at Louisiana Tech, they did score 21. And if they score 21, this game is going to go over the total for sure. Because Jacksonville State's, I think
so.
Get well into the 40s here in this one. All right, let's go to Thursday night, ACC matchup, Syracuse, Pitt. Pitt, 6-point home favorite, 62 the total. I'm on the over. I jumped on it already. I figured this total was going to go up, and I was right. I got in at 61. It's 61.5. I'm seeing 62 right now with this total. We like Syracuse's offense with Kyle McCord, and I think they're going to have some success probably. And, Pitt with this new look, Cade Bell offense, up-tempo, playing extremely fast with led at quarterback by Eli Holstein. Who's been very solid. Didn't play great against Cal. Last game against California was not a good game for this Pitt offense, but I think there's probably a chance for them to rebound here. It's a Syracuse team that if you look at the best teams they've played this year, Georgia Tech got 28 against them. Stanford, which has completely fallen on hard times, they went to Syracuse and beat Syracuse, that Stanford team, and scored 26. They give up 41 in the crazy wild overtime game with UNLV. So against some of the better offenses, the Syracuse defense hasn't been great, but I do like the Syracuse passing game. McCord's been very good, obviously, throughout the course of this season to this point, and we'll see if he can test that Pitt secondary, because if you look at the Pittsburgh numbers as far as the secondary is concerned, much the weaker the numbers as far as their defense is concerned. Very solid against the run, 25th in the country, 108 yards per game allowed running the football, but that defense for Pitt is giving up 244 passing yards per game, 105th in the country. That plays into what Syracuse does best, which is throwing the football with Kyle McCord. So I don't think I love a side here, but I do like the over in this one. CMAC, Syracuse, Pitt.
Yeah, and Pitt, off the bye after that close win with Cal, and I think it gets back to like Holstein in that game. Not a ton of yards. He should be able to be back to where he was earlier in the year, right around, I think, 275 plus 300 against the Syracuse defense. And one thing with Syracuse, McCord, I mean, he's been consistently just slinging it. Seems like 300. I love the receivers. The tight end's really good for Syracuse.
Almost 66% completions, 19 to 6 TD to INT ratio this year for McCord as well.
Yeah, I get it. I kind of lean over here too. This is 61.5. Syracuse, they keep plugging on. I know they went over NC State too, maybe getting a little better. Big win there at Cal. And of course, the win at UNLV. This would be big. I think they could hang around. I love Pitt, and they've been money. How could you not go against them? They've been 6-0, 5-1 ATS, and they are very good at home. When you have a defense like this and you start laying it, I was talking about like a touchdown, I'd be leery. I think Syracuse could maybe hang around in this game.
I'm kind of with you. I know Pitt's off the bye, and they're at home.
Yeah.
Which is not an easy environment. Syracuse going on the road, they're not indoors. Sometimes that can affect the passing team. But the secondary for Pitt's been their clear weakness defensively, which plays right into Syracuse's strength.
Right
Syracuse was a road dog at UNLV. They won outright in the first true road test of the year for them. And they aced the road test, because they won that game against UNLV. Certainly if this goes high, and look, there's been some money on Pitt. This went from 5 to 6. Definitely, if this gets to 7, I'm on Syracuse. I will be a buyer on Syracuse at 7. Even now at 6, I think they can throw on Pitt, and because of that, I think they can probably be right there in this football game. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I think Allen. Yeah, if it goes to 7, I'd start looking. I'd like that too. But I think Allen could have enough success running it. But yeah, Meeks, Pena, he's been a guy I've been on a few of his props.
These are good receivers that Syracuse has. Yep, no question about it. And I think that can keep that passing game. I think can keep him in it. The other game Thursday night, Georgia Southern and Old Dominion. Old Dominion 2-point home favorites, 54 being the total in this game. I mean, Old Dominion has really become a nice little moneymaker here. I even took them against Texas State this past. I did not think they would win the game outright, but they've been a nice.
Me too. I took them.
Yep, they won outright. That's a great win for Ricky Ronnie and his team. 24-14, they get the job done over Texas State. They didn't really stop the run. Ismail Mahdi had a really good day running it for Texas State, but McLeod, they made him look average. 2 interceptions. The defense was really, really good. The Colton Joseph at quarterback was solid enough, and I was just surprised how well they ran it. It was Aaron Young and especially Colton Joseph, this quarterback. Man, he ran amok over Texas State here in this game, and his ability to run as a running quarterback, dual threat, really, really gave Texas State a lot of problems in this game. You look at Texas State again, the 2 interceptions, those were big. They played, they won the turnover battle, Old Dominion. They were certainly more opportunistic. They're playing really solid. 5-1 against the 4-3 now against the spread this season. Georgia Southern's been pretty good against the number though too, and they're coming off their own very impressive win against JMU, 28-14, winning outright. It's 10-point dogs against JMU. We're starting to see JMU have some issues on the road. JMU has now lost a couple of road games lately where it's like, well, this team on the road's a different animal. It's funny. They absolutely destroyed Coastal at home, and that was sandwiched in between 2 road losses outright as double-digit favorites to ULM and Georgia Southern. So clearly this James Madison team's got some issues lately playing on the road, and we've seen that. It's a really good football game. I know Syracuse Pitt is your power conference game Thursday night, but don't sleep on this one. These are 2 teams that have made money for their backers, 2 teams playing very well. I think it's a little bit of a tricky game to handicap because you don't want to go. Who's going to be playing at their best? These are teams off huge victories. Georgia Southern against JMU, Old Dominion against Texas State, upset wins, big upset wins. Who's going to be able to hit the reset button, rewire themselves to bring the focus and bring the execution here on a short week after big-time wins like that? That's going to end up being the question. I personally lean Old Dominion, thinking maybe home field's the difference here. But it's hard to bet against either of these teams. They've been putting money in people's pockets all season. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, this one is tough. I kind of looked at the total in this. What both these teams, when they've been at their best, their defense has been a lot better than expected. Last week, JMU with Georgia Southern. I know Nevada not the best offense, but early on in the year, some of these games, even the Marshall game, I thought the defenses all year and the numbers have shown it. And Old Dominion, I went back to it. This is a lone spot when you get to Old Dominion. Even as like a 2-point favorite, they've been dreadful. Whether it's been 1, 3, 3.5, anytime they've been a favorite, man, they just don't get it done. And I had to go back to them with the 10 points, even though I got blasted taken the week before with Arkansas State against Texas State. But I had to go right back to it, and it was a little bit tough because I think he's improved. But like last game, they ran it well, and he needs to run it. Well, that's Joseph. He just, he's not a guy who throws it 15 to 28, 130 yards, but he had 111 on the ground. I mean, that's basically what you're going to get out of him. But I thought the numbers that kind of showed they were dealing with some stuff was how bad the defense had been for Old Dominion. But the last 2 weeks, it looks really, really good. If this comes to play, how this defense are playing, I like the under. I think this is a little bit too high. Do we
I
get
agree
finally?
with you. I think it's a sneaky under.
I mean,
these two teams have really improved themselves on the defensive side of the football the last few weeks.
Oh yeah,
Good
the
teams
numbers.
They've played well defensively, both of them.
Yeah, the numbers just have been there. I mean, and looking at Old Dominion just kind of going through quarterback being out and some tough stretches in those games, and even the numbers, they were dropped down. Looking at it last week, but I still grabbed them. I mean, they were down to like 109 overall. Just hadn't been great, but they got some good players on the D line. Even the Henderson's great linebacker. They have a pretty good defense, and it's starting to show. And for a guy like McLeod, who's been throwing for 300 consistently, it seems like every game, but man, to hold him to like 180 and a couple picks, it was impressive. So at here, 54.5 or so, I like the under.
Colton Joseph reminds me of the guy out in the Pacific Northwest for Washington State, John Mateer.
Yeah,
big lanky white
Mateer.
kid. Geez, he's got wheels though. He can run. Holy mackerel! That was impressive for Old Dominion. Especially both of these teams. Like Old Dominion beats Texas State, one of the better teams in the Sun Belt, and Georgia Southern takes down a James Madison team that beat North Carolina this year and destroyed Coastal the week before. So
I have to say, well, the comeback win, I agree, but like they beat Georgia State, 38-21, but that comeback win, which was crazy with Marshall the last 7 minutes of that game. But then to back it up, that's what I was worried about against James Madison. Definitely been impressive. I worry the way these teams are playing. Yeah, I like this under.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think these teams have improved defensively to the point where, look, Georgia Southern still plays pretty fast. Old Dominion, not so much. But plus two meetings in a row last year and 2 years ago with these two teams head to head, both of them stayed under the total. So keep that in mind as well. All right, let's go to Friday night in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. Here we've got Louisville and Boston College in the ACC. Louisville 7-point road favorites, 53.5 the total in this game. Boston College again done in last week in that game by turnovers. I mean, turnovers, mistakes. I mean, Thomas.
And they got ran on.
He's got to hang on to this ball, man. Ball security with that guy continues to be a big-time problem, and we saw it again last week against Virginia Tech in that Thursday night game. Crazy game, right? They look like they're done at halftime, down 28-0, and then you turn the game back on an hour later like I did. Well, I was watching the Bronco-Saint game that night in the baseball, hockey, everything else, and whoa, it's 28-21. It's a game again. Like Boston College comes all the way back, makes it interesting, and then it was a 14-point unanswered fourth quarter for Virginia Tech to finally put that game away. They're going to have nightmares about Bashal Tutton there for Virginia Tech. He just destroyed that BC run defense. 266 rushing yards for Tutton in that game against Boston College. Not exactly the run defense Boston College was hoping for. Let's see how they bounce back here. They've kind of a team that they surprised people early. They beat Michigan State. They hung tough with Missouri, but now that's 0-4 ATS, by the way, BC, their last 4 games, and back-to-back double-digit losses in conference to Virginia and Virginia Tech. So I'm worried about where this team's trending right now, but I can't say I'm running a lay 7 on the road with Louisville either going into this game. And I'll say this for BC's defense. Yeah, they've been shredded on the ground the last couple weeks, but
that was it.
The pass defense is actually not terrible for Boston College, and that plays into the strength of that plays well against what Louisville's better at. Louisville is not a great run team, but they can throw the football with Tyler Shuck, who's had a very good season. But you got to question this spot for Louisville. Am I liking BC's form? No. Am I liking that they've failed to cover in 4 straight? No. But Louisville is now going on the road to the Northeast on a Friday night on a short week after just expending the gas tank, expending all the energy that they did, put everything into the Miami game that they could, and to fall short, not get a stop when it mattered. And that was the difference, right? The Louisville offense did enough. There was a lot of good things from Tyler Shuck in the passing game against Miami, but they just could not get a freaking stop against that Miami offense last week for Louisville. And the defense, Connor Mack, continues to be a problem for Louisville. 52 points allowed against Miami. Remember what SMU's defense did to them? 34 points when SMU beat Louisville a few weeks ago. That defense is leaky, and I like shucking the offense, but that defense is leaky, and it's leaky enough. I'm not laying 7 on the road with them here in this spot, coming off the tough, hard-fought loss to Miami last week. I feel like I'm glutton for punishment, but I'm leaning Boston College again here. +7 home underdogs in this spot. C-Mac, what do you think?
Sometimes you got to put it behind you, Babana, and it's tough because, the fumbles were just dreadful. And the other thing that really hadn't been seen really all year, they ran all over. Yeah. It's a big, they ran for 300-something yards.
Yeah.
Wow. They didn't give that up to Missouri, nothing like that bad. They just killed. But the fumbles were just took them right out of that game.
Mac, Virginia Tech is starting to look like a monster the last few weeks.
Looking better, yeah.
Stanford game, the Miami game they should have won. And then last week, what they did to BC. Yep.
I guess in content, I guess in the AC, they are.
It up, Virginia Tech tenfold the last few weeks.
For sure. Louisville, look, the over was really nice and easy in the Miami game, but I ended up taking Louisville. I took a little bit in game 2, 11.5 while they were down. And it came down to mistake. Miami a little bit better. Both those teams just moved the ball up and down. There was 0 stops. I talked about all year that the numbers on Louisville's defense was fake. Like, it was just kind of who they play. Like, this team, the defense isn't great.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. And Shuck did what he wanted to. A couple bad turnovers, missed field goal. Then you're down by 14. They bring it all the way back, and they get stopped once. That's all it takes is kind of one stop in those shootouts. And they're down by 14, having to scramble back in that game. They scored the late touchdown. So, but Boston College, you mentioned defense a little bit better against the pass. Louisville, this is a dangerous spot. They play Clemson on deck at Clemson. I hate to say it. I might have to be on BC again here. I know after just how ugly that foot. They like, one thing we can't do when we cap these games, like refs, penalties, and turnovers.
For Louisville, though, it's a brutal spot coming off.
It's a brutal spot. Yeah. So this is BC. I'm gonna have to be on it. It's maybe this was the spot I should have been on and waited last week. But when games like that, they hadn't really turned it over. And that's what I was just saying. We can't really handicap a game where they have 4 or 5 turnovers and penalties, just shit like that with refs. So this is BC. I just have to do it. And you know what? Before last week with Miami, Louisville just hasn't covered the number too. I faded them a couple of weeks before. Virginia, they didn't cover, and the week before that with SMU. That's 4 straight. They haven't covered.
This is, and I know Louisville beat them up last year, 56-28. I get that. But the last time at BC was a 14-point dog. They won outright, 34-33.
The home teams have been just trading off here in the series.
Yep. And BC actually overall has covered 7 of the last, or 9 of the, or no, I'm just doing the math here, 6-3 for BC against the spread versus Louisville.
And the over in this series has been crazy.
Yeah.
So
I would lean over.
Maybe we get points.
I would. Yeah. I would lean over. I just I do worry because Louisville's got an offense. There's no doubt about that. But Louisville's defense, has just not been great. I lean over. I like BC though. I'm going to go to the well with BC. This is one of those games where, look, this spot is yours. It's a great spot for you. It's a negative spot for your opponent. And if you don't show up and with a better game and be at least competitive here, we got to reevaluate the trajectory of this BC team and Bill O'Brien the rest of the season. If they don't have something better. And plus they have the extra time too. They played Thursday last week. And meanwhile, here's Louisville after the huge Miami showdown, and then that took a lot out of them. And now they got to play Friday and travel. So it's set up perfectly on a silver fucking platter for BC. It's now they got to get the job done. All right. Rutgers and USC. This is 11 p.m. Eastern, Friday night after Game 1 of the World Series on Fox. It's going to be a big night in Los Angeles, clearly. We've got USC 14.5-point home favorites, 55.5 the total. This is my, after what I saw from Rutgers defense, it's really from Rutgers defense, which has been, I don't know what to make. Well, they've had injuries. That's part of it. They have suffered key injuries on the defensive side of the football the last 2 weeks. And we are seeing it. When teams like Wisconsin and UCLA are combining for 77 fucking points against you, you've got problems. And they've got serious problems right now on the defensive side of the football. Problems that probably Miller Moss and USC can exploit because they can still be capable offensively here, especially at home. Now, what we have seen from USC as well, Connor Mack, is injuries to their defense. I think they lost one of their defensive captains a couple weeks ago in the Penn State game. And then the rest of that game, they couldn't get stops. And now you see what happened against Maryland last week. Can't get a stop again. Again with the game on the line. They can't get a stop when it matters most. Again, what an incredible loss that is for USC, for Lincoln Riley. Just when you've had so many games this year go awry, you blow them late, you lose to Minnesota, you lose to Penn State, games, Michigan, same thing, and you think you're finally going to win a close one. You need a field goal to put the fucking game away, and it gets blocked. It keeps it a one-possession game. Maryland's down by 6, and they go right down the field, Billy Edwards and company, and they get the game-winning touchdown. Just a gut-wrencher for USC. Another game that was in their grasp that they let slip through their fingers. When's Lincoln Riley going to start getting called out for this crap? Year in and year out, finding ways to lose. And here it is again right now, for USC. That's inexplicable, losing that game against Maryland. I was happy because I had Maryland, and I had the over, and I needed that Maryland touchdown for that game to go over. So I was very happy to see that last week, but just an unbelievable loss for USC there. The problem is, and who knows where they're at now. This is one painful loss after another for them. 3 in a row, just gut wrenchers against Minnesota, Penn State, and Maryland. They lose all 3. Do you really want to lay 14.5 with them and their defense, which can't get a stop with the game on the line? Not really, but how can you trust Rutgers going east to west, coast to coast with a defense that's beaten up to shit with injury, riddled and decimated, and can't get a stop all of a sudden against UCLA and Wisconsin? How do you trust them? So over, to me, is the clear choice in this game. The clear choice. Rutgers can probably do enough, and I think with the way Rutgers' defense is trending down big time due to injury and performance, USC can score. So 55.5, I like over. C-Mac, what do you think?
Hey, I think you might be right. I mean, after watching, I knew the injuries there, but this UCLA offense has just been so bad. I know they played a little bit better competition, but for Garbers to throw 383 and 4 touchdowns was just crazy. And then, but the other key too,
certainly Miller Moss can do that if Garbers is, yeah.
Oh yeah, but in that game, which I talked about, I didn't see it happening. Was UCLA had been good against Kyle McManus throws for 287. I mean, he did have a pick, but come on, that was just I was mind blown. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So that was just horrible. I was dead off on that fucking game. Yep. So yeah, the injuries haven't got there. You mentioned the injuries to SC. Yeah, especially the linebackers. They've had a bunch of injuries there, and we're seeing just kind of the old defense. They just can't get a stop when it matters. Yep. They should be able to score. Maybe an SC team total. If you don't want to lay the points here,
we crowned D'Anthony Lynn too early, I think, as the DC. Although the injuries have hurt too. I'll cut him some slack with that.
Yeah, I know they always crown this bullshit. These teams, it's like 3-4 games in, they played Ball State and shit, and they're best team in the fucking country. But I think SC could be able to score in this one. I'd look their team total. You might be right. This might be able to get over because Rutgers. I mean, even going out west, I think SC wins this game. But no way. I'd be laying 14.5 down.
Yeah, I think definitely.
This has been their better spots at home here. They've been getting their ass kicked traveling the Midwest, East. Yeah.
I'd take Rutgers if it wasn't the bad travel, New Jersey to LA, coast to coast, and if they had some semblance of a healthy defense, which they do not.
Yeah, they do not.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick to just the over. I think is the best choice clearly in that one. All right. How about this Friday night? This is big time, folks. Mountain West Showdown. The stars have aligned. We've got this game right where we want it. Both of these teams right in the mix to win it. And whoever the winner of this game is takes a huge step forward to not only winning the Mountain West, but maybe keeping their flickering playoff hopes alive as well. Boise State and UNLV. We've got Boise State 3-point road favorites at Allegiant in Las Vegas, 66.5 the total. There's so much to just break down about this game. I'll start with just what we saw last when these teams faced each other. Last year, it was the bowl game. Boise and UNLV. UNLV was coming off this great renaissance, resurgent season under Barry Odom, and they thought they were good enough in that game. There was the Las Vegas Bowl in this very stadium last December, and I think they thought they were good enough to compete with and beat Boise, and they got beaten down in that game. It was 44-20 for Boise State. The offense did whatever they wanted. Ashton Genty Of course, Talon Green's gone, the quarterback, but you still got Madsen at quarterback here this year for Boise, who's pretty solid. But the key matchup is what is UNLV going to be able to do on defense against Ashton Genty? And last year they had no answer in the bowl game for Ashton Genty. 153 rushing yards in that game. He ran amok against UNLV's defense.
Last game of the year, Banana. Yeah. That was the last game of the year. They played KU in the bowl game. Yeah, the last. Yeah, okay.
Oh no, sorry, that's not the bowl. You're right. It was the Mountain West Championship game.
The Mountain West Championship. Right. There,
Mountain West Championship game. Right.
I remember it. Yeah, they got pounded. Yeah,
they got pounded, and they lost the Mountain West title to Boise. This is a spot and a game that I'm sure has been circled, highlighted 10 times over on the UNLV calendar and the UNLV schedule by the players and by everybody on this team. You know they've had this game in their crosshairs all season long. But I don't know defensively from UNLV with what I see from them, and even the Oregon State game last week, like you should have closed that game out and you let them back in it. You're giving up, big plays to that Oregon State team. Still worried, do they have the chops defensively? And Syracuse, the one loss UNLV suffered, up and down the field, go the Syracuse offense in that game. Do they have the chops defensively to improve on giving up the 44 spot that they did in the Mountain West Championship game last year to the Boise State Broncos? And can they stop the run against Genty? That's the key matchup. If you're going to win this game, if you're UNLV, you've got to clamp down on the best running back in college football right now, and that is Ashton Genty. This year, their run defensive numbers are good. 104.4 rushing yards per game, 19th, believe it or not, in the country against the run for UNLV.
It's been the pass where they've gotten hurt.
It's secondary, been the secondary where they've been hurt. So the matchup kind of plays a little bit in UNLV's favor. They're only giving up 3.4 yards per carry this year. But I will once again say they have not seen any Ashton Gentys, someone that good on the other side running the football against them. So it's the numbers say UNLV should be able to not totally shut. No one is totally shutting down Ashton Genty, but somewhat containing him, somewhat corralling him. The numbers kind of bear out they might be able to do that based on this year. But then your eyes tell you in the Mountain West Championship game last year that they couldn't stop him. And just like many teams that face Boise this year, won't be able to stop him. So it's very true. I want to bet UNLV badly, especially as +3 home underdogs here, because I think they've just been chomping at the bit to get another piece of Boise, after that championship game loss last year. But you can't argue with how dominated they were. You can't, sugarcoat how dominated they were. 527 to 298 in total yards in that 44-20 loss. You can't sugarcoat that Boise has completely and utterly dominated this team for over almost a decade every time they've played each other, and you're only laying 3 here with Boise. So, like I said, it's a question. It's a concern for the run defense. It's a concern for the number maybe not being enough. Maybe I need a little more than 3. I do love what I'm seeing from Haj Malik, though. I must say that. Haj Malik Williams, I continue to like what I'm seeing. The offense there's no problem with the offense. They have been phenomenal. He's running the ball as well. Everyone told me Slook is the better runner. I don't know about that. Sure looks to me like Haj Malik Williams can run the ball well. Jaden Thomas and a good Ricky White, incredible receiver. Say nothing of Jacob DeJesus, who's also a great kick returner as well for this UNLV team. This is a great football game, man. It's a really great football game. I think matchups kind of favor Boise, but situationals and intangibles, I'm not betting against UNLV at this number and at this price, even with my matchup concerns, because I know for a fact they've got this game fucking quadruple circled. They want some payback here against Boise, and they want to show that they're ready to measure up here in this spot. And with just how well they've been prepared week in and week out, that matters to me. And I'll say this about Boise. Their defense is still suspect. It's not a great Boise defense. We've seen them give up points this season. 30 to Utah State, 24 to Washington State. Oregon sliced and diced them. Georgia Southern in the first game kind of sliced and diced them. So Boise's defense has enough flaws. UNLV with Williams and company could be able to take advantage. I'm leaning UNLV. I like the total more. I think it's probably a high-scoring affair. between these two teams. I know it's a high total. We're starting to see these Boise totals, and for that matter, these UNLV totals start to adjust and get higher. But hard not to envision points in this game with these two teams. Great game, CMAC. What do you think here, this Friday night showdown in the Mountain West?
Yeah, this should be really, really good. It is. Because the one thing is just with UNLV, this is the step up game. Like, with all these teams that they beat and played, like this is, and a team that's owned their ass just consistently. But even dating to last year, the Mountain West, that game you were talking about, they just got handed to in that one. But I thought the game, tough place to play. Oregon State a little bit down, but they scrapped down early. Then that game goes over. But, too many field goals, kind of a little bullshit in that game. It just stayed under by a point. I think you got to think there's points. I think it's pretty sharp at this, but I'd still lean over. I mean, I don't know how there's a ton of stops, but at 66, that's getting up there. One thing, both these teams want to run it, but both of the better that they do on defense is stop the run. UNLV, they've been with Boise, been pretty good. They've been only giving up about 105 a game. Both these teams, it's their secondary has got shredded. 276 for Boise, 286 for UNLV a game. So can this help out? Like, UNLV wants to run it. We know that. Of course, Ricky White, who's going to be playing on Sundays. I mean, I would be all over him, double him like crazy if I could in this game. So, but this is what Odom. This is the game. This should be a lot of fun. I just haven't seen it in the big game like this. UNLV step it up as much as they've been money and keep winning. I want to take them here. I think this might be the time, but I'm going to sit with it a little bit more. I mean, it should be really fun, and you're not going to stop, Genty.
I think if you're going to take UNLV, either take +3 and split it with team total, or just bet the team total, because then you don't have to worry about the UNLV defense against Boise and Genty in particular, which got 44 points against them last year. So it might be one of those deals where if you like UNLV, bet team total over instead of the spread, or at the very least split it up between the spread and the team total.
Yeah, this should be good.
It is. This must watch if you're any sort of college football fan coming up on Friday night. I'm looking forward to that for sure with Boise and UNLV. All right, let's turn to Saturday. This is one of the big MAC games coming up this weekend. Bowling Green, Toledo. Toledo 3-point home favorites, 47.5 being the total here in this game. You look at the situation here for Bowling Green. They're living off the great performances against Penn State and Texas A&M, taking those teams, to the wire. But they've definitely had their share of issues since then. Bazelak, we'll have to see if he is going to be good to go for this game against Toledo. That's imperative. And the one thing I'll say about Bazelak is he did gut through that Kent State game, and he did play. We weren't expecting it, but he did, and he played well, obviously. And he wasn't 100%, but he should be feeling even better here. I'm leaning Bowling Green. I haven't given up on this team. I know they've had the game where they lost to Old Dominion. They lost to Northern Illinois, but that's the game Bazelak got injured, and that backup was just miserable. That was the other game they've lost. In the one MAC game they've lost was that game, Northern Illinois. They bounced back. They took care of business last week against Kent State. Toledo, this team has a blemish on their schedule too. What happened to them against Buffalo just recently? It was a terrible game for this team, Tucker Gleason and company. They got shredded in that game by the Buffalo Bull defense. Now, I know Buffalo I like the Lembo hire. He's done a nice job, but let's not act like Toledo's been a perfect team this year either going into this one. They did beat Northern Illinois. They did bounce back following the Buffalo loss. We'll see how this one goes. The last 2 years, Bowling Green at Toledo 2 years ago won outright as 15-point dogs. And last year, Toledo at Bowling Green wins by a point, 32-31. Bowling Green has matched up very well the last 2 years with Toledo, with Leffler versus Jason Candle in this coaching matchup. 3 or better, give me Bowling Green. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, last week. I mean, it was late news. I hadn't bet the game, and obviously that
I got a good number with Kent State thinking Bazelak wasn't going to play. at
Well,
21
no.
and a half, and I just barely covered.
So, this is what I was going to say. It was 20. I waited. He must have been in because I said, I'm like, I'm not going to bet it.
Yep.
About an hour before kickoff goes to 21 and a half. That I was like, damn, he must. But I grabbed the 21 and a half, and wow, 27 to 6, just covered with the hook.
Barely.
Gotta love those ones. But even with them in, I still liked if I had the hook. That's why I grabbed it. Went up 1.5. I'm on Bowling Green here. This is crazy. This game should be a pick'em. I don't think Toledo's really the better football team in this matchup. And that last game was kind of through the motions, whereas Kent State. I mean, the yards were there, just nothing kind of got done. I mean, it seems like they were looking forward to this game. And I love when Toledo's a favorite like this. Now, this is just right when I want to fade them because I don't buy them at all. And I think this Bowling Green team is good enough to be in this football game or even win it outright. So, yeah, I took the 3.5.
I think especially, too, after losing to Northern Illinois, there's another opportunity here. Really get back on track with a solid performance. And by the way, I should point out, and I failed to mention this, Tucker Gleason did not play in the game last week against Northern Illinois. It was John Allen Richter. Gleason did not start. Undisclosed injury. He was injured in the Buffalo game, did not play against Northern Illinois, but we'll see if he's back. And I can tell you what, John Allen Richter was nothing to write home about. Let's put it that way. Against Northern Illinois. I know they won the game, but 53.6% completions is not anything to be excited about.
By the way, Northern Illinois,
listen to him.
Northern Illinois outgained them, held the ball way longer. They had like a turnover or two. Like, that's misleading a little bit. Time possession, 36.
Northern Illinois' offense all year. They haven't been able to finish drives. It's crazy. Yeah,
that has been their problems. But yeah, I mean, they held it 36 to 23. They led in yards. Some of these games, in these MAC games, you see, it's just you look at the thing and you go, how did this just team win? Even Miami, Ohio, by 10 against Ohio, like everything in the box says that they lost the football game. Like, it's like some of them, if you look down to it, just because it may be a turnover or two and you score a quick 14, and then kind of they hung on. So it's a little weird to see when you see some of these games in the MAC.
Florida State, Miami. This was a game people were excited about before the season. Now, not so much. Miami 21-point home favorites, 54.5 the total in this game. There's not really much to say. I can't make a case for Florida State. I just can't at this point. To come out of the bye week to see if maybe he had some kind of pride or anything, and we didn't really see much of it against Duke. I know they kind of hung around, but they didn't come out ready. And I think they're starting to, I don't want to say give up on the season, but nobody at Florida State signed up for 1-6, at this stage of the season. You have to really question where the psyche and where the mentality is of this football team, especially the players right now. Do they have the pride to finish out the season strong? I'm not so sure they do. You look at this matchup, Florida State won last year against Miami 27-20. So, Miami's probably going to have Florida State's going to have Miami's attention probably. I don't know if I'll bet the game. The only thing I could consider is Miami team total over in this game, that Cam Ward does some damage. Let's not forget, SMU put 42 on this Florida State defense, and Clemson got 29. And Miami's probably better offensively than those two teams. So, yeah, the only thing I'd consider here is a Hurricane team total over. C-Mac, what do you think?
That's where I'd be, and I don't really want that, but that's the way to take it. This team just keeps, the bad game, the beat-ups, but even Florida, 41, 56, 62, 50, 38, 39, 52. I think you do it. I mean, the one lone thing is the Florida State defense has been okay, depending on who they play. You just hit them. SMU, all right, but Clemson 29. Duke, not a great offense, 23. Of course, Cal, the only game that they won. The defense is still all right, but it seems like Miami still is gets 35 here, right? I mean, yep. in their sleep at least, I think. So that's the only thing I'd be on.
If I'm gonna get involved. Yep.
What's the number? 35, 37?
Team total should be
we
around.
Don't have it out yet.
They don't have
it
out
we don't
yet,
have it out yet.
I'm doing the math in my head. It looks like it should be probably around, that's 21 and the total's 54.5. So it probably should be around 37.5, 38.
37
total. I think they could still get there, quite honestly. I mean, SMU got into the 40s against Florida State. in a game earlier this year. So Miami's probably capable of that as well. All right. And by the way, Brock Glenn was, oh my God, so bad. Awful against
I
Duke
know.
last week.
That
He got
was
pulled. Yep.
that was a tough
They have no
watch.
quarterback. DJU stunk. Brock Glenn stinks. Croman Hook is the guy that came in after that. He wasn't much better. No quarterback, no chance. And that's what we're seeing right now with Florida State. BYU, UCF. BYU 2-point road favorites, 55.5 the total. I mean, BYU magic at Provo, man. It looked like they were finally going to stub their toe and lose their first game. And what an incredible last minute drive by Retzlaff and the offense, combined with some absolutely horseshit defense and coverage down the field in the secondary by Oklahoma State last week. And then there's horrible coverage to let that Lassiter, who's a tremendous receiver for them. Him and Roberts are great, but as receivers, but you can't just let him tiptoe through the tulips there and get to the end zone. Someone's got to wrap him up. Missed tackles, and next thing you know, there's BYU getting the game-winning touchdown there in the final minute. Just a gut-wrenching loss for Oklahoma State. Easy winner if you took the points with them last week. BYU doesn't cover, but they escape with the home win last week against Oklahoma State.
The game went over, though.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
This
game here, I'll give UCF credit. Ja'Curry Brown gave that team a little bit of a spark, but it was more that they ran the football. Shockingly, they ran the football great with Ja'Curry Brown.
Crazy.
Run, and RJ Harvey came to life for 1 week finally, and they still lost. Even with 300 yards on the ground against Iowa State, they still lost the game. It tells you all you need to know about where UCF is. Right, their defense is terrible. Couldn't stop Rocco Becht in the Iowa State offense with the game on the line. He ran, he threw it. Hansen ran the ball well. Couldn't stop the great receiver, Jalen Noel, as well for Iowa State, who did some big damage against UCF. So I like the over here. Like, at least UCF showed me a pulse offensively finally with the run game again at home against BYU's defense. I think we saw it last week. They've been good, but I don't think they're as good as people think. I think UCF maybe, hopefully they don't go back into the rut they had against Florida, Colorado, these teams with offense, and Cincinnati, these games where UCF did nothing offensively. I hopefully think they can do enough here. And BYU with Retzlaff, this is a good BYU offense. I think they can move the ball here against UCF. I like the over more than anything. I'm not betting against BYU in a pick and price range. Let's put it that way. Am I running to lay it with BYU? No, but it's BYU or pass for me. I'm not stepping in front of this team. They find ways to win, and that's a credit to them. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about last week with BYU that, numbers that probably weren't going to be, that game was probably going to be 3, or let's say just the way Oklahoma State's played, that moves to 9.5. It's a difference maker, keeps me off the game. And we talked about looking at the other side with Gundy as a dog, even how bad they were, but coming off the bye week in that one. Like, this kind of was a spot, and I've been BYU, I don't know, 4 times already, 4-0 with them, to fade them, but it's just 2.5, because I think this could be a tough spot. And the inconsistency at UCF, that's the problem here, Vanna. I can't do it. Brown still can't throw it. He still had 2 picks in that game. I was just shocked. Talked about Boston College, that they ran for 354
He's
yards.
KJ Jefferson with more speed. Can't throw the ball great, but he can probably run it a little better than KJ.
Yeah, I mean, he had 150 of it in that game. But Iowa State's supposed to have this great defense. It was pretty good against the run, just get shredded. Yep. I agree with you. There could be points, but I took UCF and Florida the over. I don't know what team we're going to get. You should get this team that the bounce house playing well. And, I'd like to lean their way thinking they could be in it, but I just can't. So I got to pass here. I got to be off.
I don't blame you. I think, like I said, hopefully the UCF, and you worry too about the hangover for UCF. That was a brutal loss, painful loss. They played so well for so much of that game and blew it late and lost to that Iowa State. But I still like the over, and I actually lean BYU. I know BYU now got to go on the road to Orlando, but
these are big games. They win these. This is what makes them stay undefeated and roll. Yeah.
No doubt. All right, North Carolina and Virginia. We've got Virginia 5-point home favorites, 59 the total in this game. I could only look at Virginia. I mean, I'm not backing North Carolina. It's that simple. We've talked about other seasons falling on hard times is an understatement. Now, the one thing that's in North Carolina's favor is They are off a bye week, but I don't know if the bye week's going to fix what ails them. They are still 0-6-1 against the spread this year, North Carolina. They still have not covered a number. Their defense is just pathetic. Once again, 70 to James Madison. They blow the 20-0 lead to Duke. They give up 34 to Pitt. Can't get a stop. That game is tied and looking like it's destined for overtime 2 weeks ago for North Carolina against Georgia Tech. They give up an 80-yard run or 60-some-yard run to Jamal Haynes at the end of that game, and they lose in regulation. How does that happen? How does that happen? But to North Carolina's defense, it does. And I don't know if the bye week is going to fix this defense. It's just, not a very good defense. Virginia can score points. Calandria in the offense is good enough. I know they scored 31 against Clemson last week. We'll see how they fare here in this one. Last year, they beat North Carolina. They were 24-point dogs. How about the difference in 1 year? They were 24-point dogs last year, Virginia, at North Carolina. They won outright 31-27. And now here they are this year, 1 year later, 5-point favorites.
I remember that. Yeah.
Look at the difference. But I lean Virginia, I lean over. It's the only way. And there's no way I'm betting an under with North Carolina, and there's no way I'm betting North Carolina from a side perspective. So for me, it's Virginia and over if I'm getting involved. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, it almost seemed like if you maybe wanted to look North Carolina, of course I couldn't. This team hasn't covered a number in 11 games. Was that home game against Georgia Tech, catching 3.5, and boom, they lose it, tied up, lose it in the last seconds. And bad team, bad team, and they don't cover. Even worse.
He's out at the end of the year. Like, is this team going to fight the good fight the rest of the year? I don't know.
I don't think so. Like, I don't really love this, but I'd lay it with Virginia. But one thing I do think North Carolina can move the football here a little bit. Is that but they just suck.
Criswell's not the problem. He's been okay. He's been serviceable.
But yeah, he's been serviceable. I mean, and is there any fight left in this team? Like, I gotta see it to believe. This team needs to win, not a point spread, not the game.
Yeah,
a point spread for me to back them. So this is just Virginia pass here.
Yeah, I'm with you here. All right, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. We go from one Virginia to the other. The Hokies, 11-point home favorites, 50.5 the total. I ended up sticking. I could have bet out, jumped out of it. I did grab a little Georgia Tech last week against Notre Dame. I could have gotten out of it once I heard Haynes King was ruled out due to injury. I stuck with it. I probably shouldn't have. I didn't realize there'd be that big a drop off. I was not very impressed with what I saw from Zach Pyron, the quarterback for Georgia Tech against Notre Dame. They really struggled on offense. He's already been listed as doubtful for this game, so it looks like Haynes King is going to miss another game here for Georgia Tech. No Haynes King, no Georgia Tech for me. And I usually love Georgia Tech in the underdog role, but God, that was rough from their offense last week with Pyron at quarterback. And I'm not sure I want to step in front of Virginia Tech. This is a freight train that's starting to rev up. They should have beat Miami, easily could have won that game, and they fell just short. Controversial call at the end. Of course, then we had the Stanford beatdown, the Boston College beatdown. Don't be fooled by the final score, 42-21. The true indication of that game was 28-0 at halftime. I think they fell asleep. They had the huge lead. Everything was coming so easy for them against BC in the first, and they fell asleep in that third quarter. I think that's more of a product of that than Virginia Tech playing poorly. They've been a freight train. This is the Chiron Drones I expected coming into the year. He's starting to play really well at the quarterback position. And, of course, they got Tutton, who's an outstanding running back. Georgia Tech's defense, has been better at times this year, but they're going to stop a Virginia Tech offense that's really starting to fire on all cylinders. I'm not so sure. I understand the money move to Virginia Tech. Now that Haynes King's been ruled out, I don't know if they've got the offense to keep up with Virginia Tech for 4 quarters here. C-Mac, what do you think?
I don't know if they can either, because normally, I think this is the spot. These are always tight games, and even Georgia Tech beats them when I see this matchup over all these years. So it kind of sucks. And what I have a problem too at home here, Brett Pry, I just have a problem as a favorite. Look, he's gotten it done. He won last week, all the fumbles. If they run the ball like that again and for 350 yards, like they did against BC, they were going to win and cover and run away. And Pyron, he had a couple bad picks. He did have some yards late in that game, kind of throwing it around. He threw for 260. But that's the one thing here. There's turnovers too. Virginia Tech's going to run away with it and cover this game. And they started to look good. This offense with Drones what maybe we thought early on, in the year. So I can't be on Georgia Tech either. I just can't do it. So yeah, I'd look out though. This game is fishy.
Yeah, it is. It's just after what I saw last week from Georgia Tech, I'm not ready to trust that offense. That was rough. With Haynes King clearly matters because some quarterbacks, they're out, but the backup can step up and step in and play well. We did not see that from Georgia Tech last week against Notre Dame, so that's concerning to me. And with Haynes King out for Georgia Tech now, I don't know if I can step up to the window, even though that's a good point spread roll long term for Georgia Tech. They didn't cover in this roll last week. Why? Because the quarterback play was not good enough. Simple as that. And that's what.
Now you got to go on the road.
Yeah, again, to a red-hot Virginia Tech team. Is this a night game, too? Let me just double-check at Virginia Tech here for this one.
It's middle of the day, isn't it?
No, it's an early game. That does help Georgia Tech a little bit, but that it's not a night game in Blacksburg. But still, I don't trust their offense enough to bet them this week. All right, SMU Duke, staying in the ACC. SMU, 11-point road favorites, 49 the total in this game. SMU, there's another team that's starting to really pick it up. They didn't look right early in the year. We thought this heavily hyped team and Rhett Lashley and this offense was supposed to be great, and the defense was supposed to be much improved. It didn't look like it early in the year, but now they're 6-1. Well, they were winning games like the Nevada game, but nothing was impressive. They lost to BYU, of course, and we're finding out, though, now after losing to BYU at home, it's not that bad of a loss because here's BYU still undefeated. And since then, they've been out of their bye week. They've been tremendous. 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. It's almost like that BYU loss was a wake-up call for SMU. And coming out of that bye week, and Jennings is getting better and better at the quarterback spot. They beat down TCU. They beat down Florida State. They go on the road. They win outright as dogs at Louisville. Very solid road win. And then they beat down Stanford last week, 40-10. Jennings has been great. He's throwing the ball well enough. 322 yards. We know he can run, but the passing game is starting to get going for him now for this SMU team. 4 touchdowns, 65% completions. He has gotten better as a passer, Kevin Jennings, in recent games. No doubt for SMU. My one concern is, the easy win. It couldn't have come any easier for them against Stanford. Are you now maybe a little overvalued? You're laying 11 on the road. You got Pitt coming up after this. Duke is a team that, we're starting to see them, improve, and they haven't lost a game by more than 10 all year, and that came at Georgia Tech. Their defense has improved throughout the course of the year under Manny Diaz. I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Star Thomas can run it. I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Murphy. Hasn't been phenomenal. He's still sub 60% completions, but 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's done a decent job protecting the football. SMU was on the West Coast last week at Stanford. Now you're go back home, and then you travel again over to Durham, North Carolina for this game on Saturday. I mean, I think situationally, and maybe now because of SMU just rolling blowout fashion 4 straight weeks, this could be the right time to maybe step in and take Duke and maybe step in against SMU. Well, it's not easy. They're playing great football, SMU, both sides, and the defense has really picked it up the last few weeks as well. SMU, they're looking like the team people thought they'd look like now, but maybe a little overvalued in this spot. That's just my opinion. CMAC, what do you think here? SMU, Duke.
Yeah, I think so too. The SMU team, I like what I've seen. Obviously, their team total over, and I think this is a game they can win, but this is not laying 11 in this one. Duke, Murphy's got to be better at quarterback. Like, if they want to do stuff here, this SMU defense has been a little bit better. That's been I think, some of the success of them, and the numbers show it. One thing with Duke, though, they do give up some yards on the ground. SMU's ran it well. They gave up 150 on the ground, but the secondary, they've been great against the pass. I know Jennings has been very, very good, but they only give like 150 yards through the air. So at home here, I think like they could hang around. It's just the offense. This Duke offense, can they kind of score enough? Because it can just be bland. I get why the total's at this number. I kind of lean under. I wish this was in the 50s, a few points higher, 51, 52. I'd be on the under. But yeah, I'm leaning Duke here. Catch 11 at home.
All right, Auburn, Kentucky. Kentucky 2.5-point home favorites, 43.5 the total. I don't trust Auburn. Kentucky's only laying 2.5. I lean Kentucky, but I got to admit, I'm souring on Kentucky. What happened to their defense last week? Kentucky against Florida. What the hell happened to it? That was a eyebrow raiser. Seeing basically the Florida Gators offense just run amok. 48 points to Florida for this so-called good Kentucky defense. I know Lagway is a capable quarterback, but it wasn't really Lagway. It was the run game. Couldn't stop Jaden Baugh. Lagway adds 46 rushing yards. I mean, Lagway had 250. The thing is, it's crazy. He had 7 completions, but for 259 passing yards. They were big plays in the passing game. Busts in the secondary for Kentucky in that game. The question is Auburn's offense capable of busting anybody right now on that side of the football? I'm not so sure about that. Peyton Thorne, it's pedestrian once again. They had a lead against Missouri, and then Missouri comes all the way back from 17-3 down. Brady Cook, heroics. He's gone to the hospital with a concussion, it felt like, or some injury. Comes back later in the same game and leads Missouri to a comeback victory. It was like a storybook or something, like a movie. Straight out of a movie, what happened with Brady Cook and Missouri in that comeback win against Auburn. But I lean Kentucky. But boy, that defense, what happened to it last week? And if they have defense like that, Vandegrift's not good enough to carry them offensively. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, this one is ugly. What Kentucky team are we going to get? This defense was so good. They are back at home here, and I'm sure they're going to get chewed out. Florida. Yeah, they haven't been good on the road. I mean, they give up 190. You talked about Lagway through the air. They gave 190 on the ground to this Florida team. How about Florida? All of a sudden, turn it around.
They're rallying for Billy Napier. Believe it or not, yeah.
They are. Auburn, I still think their defense is pretty good. That game was tight against Missouri. The under was easy the whole way. I kind of lean the under here. I thought the total was a little bit low. But, man, this seems like both these offenses aren't going to do anything, I think, in this game. Vandegrift and Thorne, I don't know. I lean under. I can't back either of them. I guess if I had a free, I'd lean Kentucky. But I don't even want to lay 2.5. I just Thorne on the road, Auburn. I just no way. They're just a fade or stay away.
You could say Jaden Baugh has saved the season for Florida. All of a sudden, this guy stepped up and become the lead back, and he's been a terror for Florida all of a sudden, running the football. And Kentucky found that out the hard way this past weekend in that loss. All right, we move along here. We've got people in the chat have been asking about this one. Asking you shall receive. Notre Dame and Navy. Very fascinating game. The undefeated midshipmen, but by far taking on their most difficult opponent so far this year against Notre Dame. They are 12-point underdogs here. This is a neutral field game at MetLife Stadium, home of the New York Jets and the New York Giants. 52 the total in this game between Notre Dame and Navy. So when you look at this, and I'm just going to make sure people are aware, it is in New York, MetLife Stadium, neutral field. I mean, I'm not stepping in front of Navy as double-digit dogs. I am concerned about the class step up and upgrade this is for Navy as far as quality of competition. The one thing you can say about Navy is there's not been a chock full, and even you can say that to a lesser extent about Army as well. Temple, Bucknell, Memphis was the best game they played, and they did play well in that 56-44. UAB, Air Force, Charlotte. This is a who's who that's a pretty weak-ass schedule. And now you're facing Notre Dame. We'll see how they fare in it. Obviously, when you look at Navy, why are they having the success on offense this year? They're a team that's put up big points. It's actually been a combination of, the passing game. They still run extremely heavy. Will it work here against Notre Dame? But Notre Dame is a great secondary. They are a little bit more susceptible against the run. So on defense, that is. Will they be able to run the football here is going to be the question. That being said, I will say this. It was a very good run defensive performance from Notre Dame against Georgia Tech last week. There was no run game to speak of. Jamal Haynes had 15 yards rushing on 8 carries. So Notre Dame's run defense is getting better. And that's obviously the concern. That's the critical matchup. If Navy's going to compete in this game, stay inside the number, got to have success with the run game. Will they be able to? Because Notre Dame, yeah, their full season numbers are pretty good, but I think they've gotten even better the last few weeks against the run. Notre Dame. That's the biggest fear I have. I like what I see from Blake Horvath running that offense. Texa running the ball is very solid, the tailback, but will they have that success here against Notre Dame is the biggest question. I mean, I'm going to take Navy, but I am concerned that the run game may not work here because Notre Dame's run defense, it's gotten better and better. And what they did against Jamal Haynes is a really good back. And Georgia Tech's a run-first offense by far. And there was no run game at all for Georgia Tech in that game. None. You got to give Notre Dame's run defense a lot of credit. That's the biggest fear I have, but I'm still going to take Navy here, getting the 12. C-Mac, what do you think here?
Yeah, usually in this series too, Notre Dame either just blows them out or the games are tight.
Yeah,
it's like 10 points or less, like a touchdown.
No in between, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no in between in all these years, especially when I watch these. So can Navy? One thing of Navy, you mentioned Notre Dame, the defense, and last week it's kind of like those junk yards they gave up. They were better against the run against Georgia Tech. It gave up 260 yards, kind of with the lead in that one. I think they'll have some success, but dude, Navy, I just look at the schedule here. Strength. I mean, the schedule has just been so soft. I mean, the Memphis win was decent, obviously, in that game, but I mean, UAB, Air Force, they've looked great. This one's tough. I want to take Navy too. Like I could picture them having some success in this game.
Type of deal. It's just yeah. And they did lose 42-3 last year. Yeah.
That's what it just seems like these get away from them and they're just the blowout, or like if Navy's in, and I think maybe you'll know right away, like first quarter, like or so. And just can they hang tough here? But this kind of was a recipe. Northern Illinois, just a slow team. They want to run the ball. They're not flashy, and just been a little bit of a problem for Notre Dame. So yeah, I lean their way.
Yeah, very interesting, though. That's a very intriguing.
This total, by the way, this total's high. Navy's been so successful, but for a Notre Dame game, it's a little up there.
And it stayed under this total last year. Last year was 45 points between these two teams, 42-3 Notre Dame.
They've had some lot of scoring games, though, over the years, though.
Yeah.
Some lower scoring, but they've run a lot of points when these teams have got together in the past.
No doubt. I will say this. The last 3 games now, Riley Leonard's starting to look like Riley Leonard again. He has looked better. Riley Leonard was at his best for Duke. I mean, and he's starting to look that way again for Notre Dame the last few weeks. So that's another thing that Navy's got to, and he can run. And that's the biggest thing is Navy got the athletes and the speed to contain Riley Leonard in the run game because Riley Leonard likes to run the football. And I don't know how many mobile quarterbacks Navy's defense has faced this year. I don't think too many. So that would concern me too a little bit about Navy in this game. All right, Michigan State and Michigan. Michigan 5.5-point home favorites, 40.5 being the total here in this game. I like Jonathan Smith and the Spartans here. I do. I mean, you're going to lay points with this offense? Doesn't matter anymore. I don't want to hear it. Davis Warren, Alex Orji, Jack Tuttle, who was terrible last week. Doesn't matter anymore. They don't have a quarterback that can play anywhere close to what J.J. McCarthy gave them last year. They have no receivers. The O-line's not as good. Their best weapon is Colston Loveland. And if you double team him and you take him away, what have you got, as far as receiving talent for Michigan? And it came back to haunt them last week, the loss to Illinois. Now they realize we're not winning the Big Ten. We're not a playoff team. I worry the season might get away from Michigan a little bit. I have no interest laying points with Michigan here. Michigan State, give them credit. It's not a great Iowa team, but they won convincingly. They outplayed Iowa. Childs stepped up and played a better game finally. Defense was opportunistic. And Jonathan Smith is a hell of a coach. He's the kind of coach that's so good that I trust him to have his team better in October than it was in September, better in November than it was in October. That's the kind of coach he is. His teams get better, not worse, as the season goes on. Give him time, and you're going to see improvement progressively from Michigan State, and I think you're starting to see that. Give me the points here. Michigan State, they might even win outright. I know it's at the Big House, and it's a night game, but I think this is Michigan State. Their trajectory is starting to go up, and, Michigan with their offense, it's trending down, and how can you lay the points with them with their quarterback play? Their quarterback play is miserable, and it doesn't matter which of the 3 stiffs get in there, Orji, Warren, or Tuttle. Not good enough at the quarterback spot, period. C-Mac, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, Jonathan Smith. How can you not? This guy just keeps getting better at these teams. And like, I mean, Childs, like he does that. I know he had a pick, but if he goes for 250, is that
Yep.
good? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's all you need out. The defense was good, like you talked about. Shut down. I think this Michigan State defense is what's been turning around. I know some of these games they've given up, but I think they've gotten better. And this may be the perfect team to go against a Michigan team that can't throw it. Like the total's low. I mean, I lean under. And a lot of these Michigan games, I know a couple have stayed under. Like, I mean, last week did, but earlier on the year they snuck over. They're 4-3 to the over. Michigan State's 2-5 to the under. So I do have a low total in this one because I mean their way. This is first time in a couple of years. I think they keep this game tight and low scoring. I mean, I don't know how Michigan total. And you know what they did last week though? There's turnovers, killed them, man. And they kind of moved the ball a little bit.
Well, the one at the fourth quarter that ended the game for Tuttle, that's inexcusable. You can't make that throw. Can't make that decision. Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem like he's ready. There's these guys that are lost out there. Like he's just not in sync with anything. So I agree with you. How can you
read the room? Why did he not stick at Indiana? Indiana program that before this year was terrible the last few years. Why was he not good enough to stick at Indiana, who were desperate for a good quarterback? Because he's not good enough. That's why. It's not difficult. Not
real quick,
I'm figuring that one out. Yeah.
Michigan too. I mean, they're 4-3. Like, could they win this game? Yeah, but do you want to lay 5.5? They're 1-6 ATS. They've just been one of like. Do they wake up here in a big rivalry game? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big question. There's no doubt. I don't think, like, even if Michigan wins this game, you have the offense. Do you have the trust in the offense to win by margin? I don't. Maryland and Minnesota. We stay in the Big Ten. Minnesota 4-point home favorites, 46 being the total in this game. What do we get from Maryland? What an incredible comeback win. They look like they were out of that game until they weren't. And USC has a field goal block that would have put the game away. Maryland goes down, scores the game-winning touchdown to beat USC. Incredible win, 29-28. But do you have a letdown maybe emotionally after that? Here's the thing with Minnesota. They were a favorite against UCLA. They either pushed or lost, depending on what number you had, because it was 4.5. Depends on what number you had. But they're not a team I trust laying points. I mean, I know they beat Nevada the one time as favorites, but they're not a team I typically trust to win by big margins. And, Brosmer's a guy that's been okay at times, but he's still growing. He had a better game against UCLA. The run game with Darius Taylor hasn't always been rolling here for this Minnesota team. I know Maryland's not a great defensive team. Minnesota probably is the better defensive team. But are we going to get the offense, kind of like we just talked about with Michigan, to trust Minnesota laying 4? I'm not so sure. It's a bit of a dubious spot. Maryland going on the road after the huge comeback.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest Maryland spot either. So I don't know if I bet the game, but I'm leery of laying points with Minnesota's offense. C-Mac, what do you think?
Last note on that last game too. Michigan, obviously big game, but they play Oregon next. I forgot to put that one. Yeah, this is kind of the shit spot. Like Maryland last week, and great comeback, went down, win the game, but this doesn't seem like good. And Minnesota, the ultimate team, I really don't want to lay more than 3 with. I would here, but I really don't want to. I still think their defense is a little bit better than Maryland. I just don't trust Brosmer. Even in that UCLA game, they didn't run the ball. Well, they need to get that going. For this team to succeed, they need to be able to run the rock with Taylor or even make some of these guys. So, yeah, I won't be on this one. Pass.
All right, next up, we've got Washington and Indiana. How about these Hoosiers, man? They just absolutely destroyed Nebraska last weekend, laid waste to them. I mean, and they lost Curtis Rourke to injury midway through that game. And they still rolled that Nebraska Cornhuskers team. I can't say enough about how impressed I am. I mean, this team, Kurt Cignetti, man, they need to build a statue, I think, already for him outside of Bloomington there with what he has done with this program. Still undefeated, 7-0 straight up, 6-1 against the spread. And now they welcome Washington into town. Indiana 7-point home favorites, 53 being the total here in this game. Obviously, I felt sick watching Curtis Rourke get injured because he's had such a great season. He is definitely the straw that has stirred the drink of why Indiana's had this resurgent bounce back, comeback season. And now, of course, he's got this injury that's going to keep him out, I think, for at least a few games. But I'll say this, Taven Jackson comes in for Indiana in that game against Nebraska, goes 7 for 8, 87% completions, 91 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. He looked fine. Now, I do think he's not quite as good. He can't be as good as Curtis Rourke, because Curtis Rourke's been amazing. But I don't know, Connor. To me, Taven Jackson looked like a guy that could still go out there and win games for you at the quarterback spot. He looked solid, and that's coaching. That's why Signetti's a great coach. He had coached up this backup to be ready for when the opportunity came, if an injury struck to Rourke, and look at the way he played against Nebraska there last week when he stepped into the game. So people might say, because Rourke's out, maybe this is the week Indiana, shits the bed or loses their first game or is in tough. I still don't trust Washington fully to go on the road for an early start game like this. I think it is an early game on noon Eastern on Saturday to get the job done. I like Rodgers, but like I said, I don't know if this is the best fit schematically, this offense for him. The defense has been, look, that Rutgers loss is aging poorly for Washington when they went on the road to for a game in the East and they lost to Rutgers. That game looks terrible now with what we've seen out of Rutgers the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Look, I've been on Indiana every week, and every week they keep cashing for me. I'm on them again. And I know there's no Rourke, but Taven Jackson looked good enough, competent enough at the quarterback spot, and I just flat out don't trust Washington, and I trust Signetti and what he's done with this team. So it's Indiana or pass for me, C-Mac.
I get it. I mean, Jackson, didn't skip a beat. What was he, like 7 of 8, 7 of 9, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns?
Pass, yeah.
Yeah.
He was fine.
He was fine. Dude, this Indiana team, if you take it, like you're saying, you just keep riding him. One other thing, and if you think maybe 7's a little bit rich, unless there's mistakes by him, but I don't think this is the game. Look at their team total or just go over, because they've gotten it almost by themselves. The over. So Indiana team total. I don't think this Washington defense is great, and they got here, then they're at versus SC, then at Penn State. They could be 4-6. In this one, Rodgers is all right. They are off the bye for Washington, which is solid. But man, that was a tough game to see Iowa just beat them up in the trenches. And that loss 40-16. So maybe they play better. I just can't buy on Washington here this week.
Yeah, it's like I say, I think it's don't be careful with this rhetoric you're going to hear. Oh, no Curtis Rourke, maybe Indiana's in trouble. I'm not so sure they are, personally.
Not here.
I think we're that good.
Let's see down the line.
Yeah,
big coming up. But I think even in this spot with Jackson, this is one more. Roll it. Keep rolling.
This is a 9 a.m. Pacific start for a team from the Pacific time zone from the West Coast, Washington. That's pretty tough. Texas Tech and TCU. We've got TCU 7-point home favorites, 66.5 the total. The over stands out here. Texas Tech's defense is kind of falling apart again. Still very good on offense, but they just got shredded by the Baylor Bears last weekend. 59-35 loss to Baylor. Again, the offense is, I like, with Baron Morton and company, and Taj Brooks running the ball. Caleb Douglas at the receiver spot, but Sawyer Robertson just picked them apart. Bryson Washington ran the football for Baylor down Texas Tech's throat. And look, I know TCU, the offense, TCU could have had 35 points in that game against Utah. They just sputtered in the red zone and in Utah territory over and over again. But Utah's still got a pretty solid defense. Let's not forget that. I can't say that about Texas Tech on a consistent basis. So I think for Josh Hoover and the TCU offense, they fix the red zone problems, because this is definitely a much weaker defense. They're playing at home as well. So I think the over is the way to go. I don't want to lay 7, though, with TCU. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this could even get over this number. Hoover should have a huge game here, 350 plus. Texas Tech just fell apart. I kind of talked about that, they just move away from a kind of a field goal or less favorites, not the way they want to go. And I thought the defense wasn't very good. The Arizona, we're seeing how bad Arizona is. But man, in that game. And yeah, just yards were plenty. And I thought Robertson would have a ton of success. 5 TDs, maybe not like that type beatdown, but I get it. I kind of lean Texas Tech. If we got maybe 7 and a hook, TCU as a favorite's been dog shit.
They've been terrible. Yeah. I agree.
I
was on TCU against Utah, believe it or not, as a dog at Utah. I took TCU last week, but as a favorite, no mas.
Yep, it's been with that defense. Just watch out. They need to make sure they score enough, to kind of hold on, because I think the back door could be flying wide open here. I'm looking at Texas Tech. This is one that I just got my eyes on. Yeah,
I'm with you there from a side perspective. I lean Texas Tech as well. What do you think here next up? SEC, LSU, Texas A&M. Texas A&M 2.5-point home favorites. 53.5 the total in this game. Look, LSU was damn impressive to come off that comeback win against Ole Miss in overtime, and then beat down Arkansas like that, which does have a win against Tennessee on their resume. That was damn impressive, and I'll take the loss on that one. I'll own it. I'll eat it. But man, very impressive. Nussmeier in the offense. Arkansas couldn't stop them. It was very, very impressive. And once they got behind, that's the thing with Arkansas. They got to keep the game within arm's length. If they get too far behind, Talon Green is not the kind of guy that's going to lead you back all the time. And we saw that last
And they were doing it with their defense. We'll get to that. That's how they were having success with Arkansas. Yeah, it just didn't happen. They got behind. Yeah.
No, they got behind. And credit to LSU. I still think this could be the spot LSU kind of, big win against Ole Miss, big road win against Now you're on the road again, second straight game on the road. A&M, that Kyle Field, which can be a tough spot. Last time, by the way, I know A&M lost to Notre Dame first game, but at night now at Kyle Field, they laid waste to Missouri in their last home game. Connor Wegman's playing much better now since he's been back from that injury. He struggled in the Notre Dame game. He's looked like the old Connor Wegman again. He's played very well. The defense is starting to get better. They gave up some points early against Mississippi State. They're an improved offense with Van Buren, the Van Buren boys. Like I say,
they're playing better football.
That's not the sign. It was when I was banging. Yeah, Van Buren for Mississippi State. Van Buren for Mississippi State has played well. So I don't fault A&M's defense too much for giving up some points there in that. Remember, Mississippi State put up big points against Georgia the week before. Let's not forget that. They moved the ball against Georgia's defense too. So I think at less than a field goal, I think this is where that catches up to LSU, I think. The Ole Miss game, the Arkansas road win. Now you're on the road again. Another huge game in the SEC. It's a meat grinder. This SEC just you go through the wars week in and week out like this. Eventually you're gonna get stuck. And A&M got to pace themselves against Mississippi State. LSU had to play Arkansas, tough team on the road. I think A&M could get him here, and I still think A&M's got a little better defense than LSU. So A&M for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, that was impressive. I mean, I was on Arkansas too. I mean, the LSU, I got to give up a little bit to just how they did that, and their defense has been better. Yep. I mean, I still don't. I think it could be got, but it's turning around. They have the athletes. And it worked out. But yeah, Arkansas coming from behind, and they just that was a little bit shocking. This would be huge for them to go on the road. I can't buy it. I got to go against them here again. And I haven't been the biggest backer of Texas A&M. And this price seems short, maybe a little fishy, but I have to go. I have to roll with them. They've been playing a lot better football, as of late in these games. Even the Arkansas, the game they pulled out, they beat up Missouri at home. They've been able to get the job done. I think they can do it here. Nussmeier can he keep doing this? The come from behind win for Ole Miss. They go in and beat Arkansas. This would be a massive win. I think you got to put LSU back on the map. But I think you got to look at A&M in the spot.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. It's just I think the spot might finally catch up here to LSU a little bit. Although they've been impressive.
It should be a good game. Yeah,
it is. It is. Like I said, I've been higher on A&M than a lot of people. We'll see if they reward me for that thinking here coming up on Saturday. All right, back to the Big 12 here. Utah and Houston. Utah 3.5-point road favorites, 37 the total. Man, of all the disappointing performances, I know this one flew under the radar a bit compared to some of the bigger games, but Houston off a bye week, playing like that, starting the game the way they did against Kansas last Saturday.
Where's this Kansas team been? No.
I know.
Both teams. One was bad, I left it by, and one was great.
Kansas finally had their best game of the year, most complete game of the year, and Houston was powerless to stop it. Very disappointing because I like Fritz, and off a bye that they didn't play better than that. They couldn't start the game better than that. That being said, I'm tempted to come back to Houston here. How can you lay points on the road with Isaac Wilson? Doesn't matter. Zach Wilson, Isaac Wilson, any fucking quarterback in the future that comes from the Wilson family, bet against it, apparently, is the way to go.
Dennis Wilson.
Yeah.
All the Wilsons, from
all
Beach
of them.
Boys, everyone.
I mean, my gosh, how can you lay points with their offense right now? Their offense looks broken. And the announcers are trying to make it sound like he's making progress. What progress? What the fuck game are they watching last week with that Utah TCU? He was terrible again. I know he ran a bit and made a couple of plays, but too many bad decisions, more interceptions, can't finish drives. And now you got to lay 3.5. And plus you got to worry, where's Utah's mindset? This season is blown up on them. No Big 12 championship, no playoffs, none of the expectations coming into the season they're going to meet. Cam Rising's been shut down. Now we're going to lay 3.5 on the road with this team? No, that's not happening. I could only back the Cougs here, plus 3.5 at home. C-Mac, what do you think? I lean under 2.
Yeah, it's pretty low, but I don't know. I think this could be one that could be like real ugly, like 13-10 type game. Houston's got to get back. Their defense kind of got slapped. They got run over, and Donovan Smith though back to the horrible. It's just the offense you thought would be better wasn't in that game. Like, look, he got yanked, or did he kind of got hurt? Did he left out? Because Smith came in was even worse. Babano, because I saw him when he came in. I saw 2 of his picks.
Chris got injured. He got injured. Issue, but he's expected to play on Saturday against Utah, and apparently he's starting. And that's the right move. Donovan Smith can't play. He's terrible.
He cannot play. So hopefully Chris is better. Yeah, like I said, I saw 2 of them. And I'm like, oh, man. So you better hope his hamstring is good. And I just thought the defense would be better. Hats off. Kansas, that was like do or die. I'd kind of been saying that earlier, and they hadn't got it done. Babano. So this is ugly. Under. I can't even take Houston. Can't do it.
All right, Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 21-point home favorites, 48 the total. I'm going to be brief. I don't know if I can't back Oklahoma right now again. And I was on South Carolina. I'm glad I did. I said, well, can I take them to win outright though in Norman? But to me, it just screamed like after how they should have beat Alabama the week before South Carolina, that they were just the better team, and they proved it. They destroyed Oklahoma 35-9, South Carolina all over them. That's now back-to-back blowout losses for Oklahoma. Ole Miss is coming off the overtime loss, but a bye week as well, so a chance to hit the reset button for Lane Kiffin and company. And their defense is better this year, Ole Miss, and I just don't know what we're going to get offensively. The Hawkins was working early on, but Arnold, of course, struggled again last week. They went back to him, and it was not good against South Carolina with Jackson Arnold. That's a lot of points, but Ole Miss off a bye and a loss, and I've lost complete faith in Oklahoma's offense. Maybe the Oklahoma team total under is the best bet in this game, because look, they've scored 9 and they've scored 3 in their last 2 games. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, can this offense do anything here? And this seems like just a big spot for Ole Miss. I know this is a ton of points, but it doesn't matter who's really been a quarterback. Even Hawkins, he just has trouble throwing it.
Yep.
He had a couple plays. He can run it, but the defense is okay. But this seems like, look, the Oklahoma team total, I was going to know that, or Ole Miss seems like I think they could to get to their team total in this one. Yeah, I can't look at Oklahoma. A little weird. 3 touchdown dogs, Oklahoma. It just sounds weird to say. Even. And one thing why this total, so the Ole Miss defense is legit, and they've been a dead under team all year.
No doubt. Oklahoma State, Baylor. We've got Baylor 6.5-point home favorite, 65 the total. Now, Gundy as an underdog last week comes through against BYU. They lose the game straight up on the last drive of the game, but they still cover the number wire to wire. But still, they played hard. They had that rally the troops effort to try to get their season back on track, Oklahoma State, and then to lose it and blow it in the final minute. I mean, I do worry there's a hangover, and this could be a week they don't even show, because now you're at 3-4, season's kind of getting away from you. And Baylor is off a great, impressive win against Texas Tech, 59-35, and their offense should have. I feel better about the over in this game because I think Baylor with Sawyer Robertson can move. Oklahoma State's defense has kind of reverted back to bad form, 38-plus points allowed, 3 straight games for Oklahoma State. But I think Oklahoma State can move the football, too, against Baylor, led by, of course, it was Garrett Rangel last week, although Bowman also, they played both quarterbacks. And both
quarterback carousel.
It is a carousel right now with Gundy. He's not sure where he's going to turn to, but either one might be able to score as well here against Baylor. So I don't know if I'm coming back to Oklahoma State this week, but I do like the over in this game. I would lean Oklahoma State, but Baylor's playing some better football lately, and I worry about Oklahoma State's psyche. That's a crusher of a loss against BYU. How do they respond having to go on the road again this week? CMAC, what do you think?
I don't know if I get it. If there's 7 here, I'm going to take Oklahoma State. And the one I hate is the quarterback thing. I just hate those. I talk about it all the time. Even in college, it drives me nuts. Yeah, both teams should be able to score. I mean, Baylor was impressed. We already touched on Texas Tech, how the offense got rolling. And they've got a little bit healthy. They've got a lot of guys on defenses in and out, all year, this Baylor team. And, man, it's shown. The defense at times has just been shredded on in some of these games where they've given up a ton of points. BYU, Iowa State, Colorado. But yeah, this one I'm kind of leaning to Oklahoma State, thinking they can hang around. I think everything's a little bit right. It's just, do you want to go that way? And Baylor off the big win, now they're favorites when really, this is not a spot for them. I just don't think that they're really ready to be laying 7, even at home.
The only cover for Baylor was against a bad Air Force, and Air Force is horrible. I can't say enough.
They were just yeah.
That's the only time they've covered as a favorite this year, Baylor. They also were a favorite against BYU. They lost outright. So not easy to lay points with Dave Aranda's crew. I'll tell you that. All right, Tulane and North Texas. This is a really good AAC matchup here. We've got Tulane 7.5-point road favorite, 65.5 the total. Tulane's offense didn't look right last time. I was very surprised. I mean, this is Darian Mensah, and that Tulane offense has been very good all season, but they had their trouble getting going against Rice last week. But credit to Rice for keeping them in check, 24-10. They did get going eventually, but it wasn't one of his better games. The run game was still good with Mekhi Hughes. We'll see if they bounce back here. North Texas is kind of the defense that I think they probably could bounce back against. Because we've seen North Texas give up 66 to Texas Tech, 37 to Florida Atlantic, 52 last week to Memphis. And I was on North Texas plus the points. Thank goodness their offense showed up. That's why they covered the number there, because their defense struggled all night with Seth Hennigan and the Memphis offense. But they don't have a great defense, North Texas, but they've got one hell of an offense. Chandler Morris, the TCU transfer, is having a great season at quarterback for North Texas. He's been great. They've got a good run game with DT Sheffield. They got another one of these white kids that can run, Shane Porter. He's been very good running the football as well for North Texas. Been very, very impressed with their offense, and their offense might keep them in this game. They're a very tough team to lay these kind of points. Tulane's the better team and certainly the better defense, but it's tough to lay points against a North Texas team that keeps scoring and the back door's wide open oftentimes in a lot of these games. So I actually think at north of 7, I lean North Texas plus 7.5. I like the over too. It's hard not to bet an over with North Texas right now. They can't stop anybody for the most part, but their offense can score on almost every possession. And I think Tulane's offense gets back on track this week against a weaker defense. So I like the over as well. CMAC, what do you think? Tulane, North Texas.
Yeah, they kind of just, one of those games, ho-hum. That's up. Rice playing a little bit better football.
Yep.
How bad they were early on. Man, this is it. I'll say it. This is the game. Over, Rover. Tulane's going to get back on track. They'll easily get in the 40s, higher and North Texas is going to be able to score, I think, too, coming and catching up from behind. Yeah, thank God for their offense. The last 3 years, that's why the points I thought were too much, I was on it too, man. It's just They've all been like that score, like 52, 42, 44, whatever it was
the
last week.
offense is just a machine, even though they can't get stops. Yep.
Yeah. That's been like the score for 3 straight years, it seems like, between Memphis and North Texas. They're at home here, and it could be open. But yeah, just take the over here. I think both teams should be able to. There should be points in this game.
Missouri, Alabama. Alabama 14-point home favorites, 56 the total. Okay, so to struggle with South Carolina, to lose to Vanderbilt's one thing, because it was coming off the big win against Georgia. And Vanderbilt's good this year. We know that. Much improved. Diego Pavia, the whole bit. Much improved Vanderbilt team. But then to struggle and survive by the skin of their teeth against South Carolina, and then to sputter like they did against Tennessee. And Tennessee's a good team, but to sputter the way they did, and just Jalen Milroe, man, that was one of the worst games I've seen him have in a long time. Just skipping the ball into the turf, bad decisions, bad interceptions. I thought the defense actually stepped up for Alabama, did everything they could, but that offense, what's happened? A game like that with this coach and this quarterback on offense is not supposed to happen. A game that poor from Milroe, and considering who he's being coached up by as well on the offensive side by Kalen DeBoer. So I'm at the point now where, look, I'm going to dare Alabama to prove it to me. 4 strong quarters, both sides of the ball, offense and defense working at the same time. Until I see it, I could only look at the Mizzou side here, plus 14. On the road at Tuscaloosa is not easy, but hell, South Carolina was a bigger dog than this, and they almost won the game outright in Tuscaloosa a couple weeks ago. So for me, it's prove it, to Alabama, that you can be good enough to be laying a number like this. Last year, these teams, or it was a few years ago, they played. Mizzou did cover, so it's been a while. Mizzou, I know they got housed by A&M. Their best opponent they've played on the road this year by far, 41-10. That does concern me, but I think I got more concerns about what I'm seeing from Bama. So I'm probably still going to take my shot here with Missouri plus 14. And Brady Cook, the heroics to come back in and after being injured and lead that comeback against Auburn. That kid's got guts. He's a pretty tough son of a gun, and give him credit for that. C-Mac, what do you think here? SEC, Missouri, Alabama.
Yeah, the one game was for Missouri, where they went to A&M, where I just think their defense looked, awful. I think Alabama will be able to score. I don't like years past to be like, this is the bounce back, easy, lay it with Bama. I'm not so sure. You mentioned it. Their defense isn't there, and it's sporadic. Like it plays a quarter or half, and then the offense this week. Hats off to Tennessee.
I don't see the receiving talent either outside of Ryan Williams. Let's be honest. And even he dropped one last week. Dropped a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's excellent, but yeah, there's not maybe a ton around him right now. And Milroe finally made mistakes, even though how talented he is. There's just no way I can take Bama. And Bama's beat their just bricks off him, it seems like, the last few times they played in this kind of series. But this is, I think, too many. I don't know if I get involved. I don't know if I get here with Mizzou. It seems like this is where I get their hopes of, and then they get gashed. But I can't believe in right now with Bama. And normal spots, it just kind of hasn't been working out this year.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Billy Briz, good to see you in the chat as well. Anthony Richardson, Timothy A, Chosen One, Dom, Nunya, Ross Pitts, everyone else joining us for hitting the books. We appreciate it. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. All right, we stay in the SEC. Texas and Vanderbilt. Texas humbled by Georgia last week. Is it a bounce back spot for them as they travel to Nashville? 18.5-point road favorites, 53.5 the total. The one fear I have is obviously, look, it's a bounce back spot for Texas. They got humbled, embarrassed on national television by Georgia. They thought they were maybe ready to beat the better than Georgia, and Georgia brought them back down to earth. The offensive line was beaten up in the trenches. They struggled. It is a bounce back spot, and they should have focus here for Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt continues to be a team that is just money as an underdog, and especially with Pavia, the quarterback, as an underdog, going back to his days at New Mexico State when they were an underdog so many times last year, and they're covering with this guy at quarterback. I know it's a bounce back spot for Texas, but Vanderbilt beat Alabama. They took Missouri down to the wire. Against Kentucky in a flat spot or in a tough spot after the huge upset against Alabama, they still showed up and they beat Kentucky in that game. Give me Vanderbilt here. They have been that good as an underdog. This quarterback has been that good as an underdog. And yeah, you could say bounce back spot, maybe a hangover, like too, because you thought you were better than Georgia, ready to beat them, and you got beaten and you got dominated by them in that game. It may not be as easy as some people think for Texas to just rally the troops again and take apart Vanderbilt, who they haven't shown Vanderbilt this year very often that they're capable of being taken apart. They've been very solid. And I think they can at least do enough to hang inside a big number like this, as they've done so many times already this year. CMAC, Texas, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they weren't able to run it. It just timely turnovers for Texas. I know Beck, he had some picks. I mean, there, but the lead, they kind of got out in front. But fumbles, they had 3 fumbles for loss. Yours had the pick, and like they weren't able to run it. It was good to see kind of the old Georgia getting into talks about how good maybe that defense isn't that great. How can you not? I gotta have something on here on Vandy.
Like, 4-0 ATS are double-digit dogs, and they've won 3 of those games, I believe, outright.
Yeah, I get it. And Texas was way more talented, but I don't know how easy this will be. And Pavia, dating back to last year, I mean, as the dog, he's just cash for me when I took him. Like, and he's just so gritty. Like he's gonna bring you back. Like, or even if they're down, he's gonna, they're down by 2 or 3 scores, will run down and get you a score.
That guy, yep.
Definitely, for sure. So Texas, this seems, but I think this could be right in that range. But I'd want the 18.5. I'd be leery of just laying it here with Texas.
I would be too. I would. And look, they're definitely the talent's immense, and it's more than what Vanderbilt has. Vanderbilt has been just, like I say, 4-0 ATS as a double-digit underdog this year, and they won 3 of those games outright: Virginia Tech, Kentucky, and Alabama. And the one they didn't, they lost in overtime against Missouri. So, yeah, they've been money in this role. I wouldn't be shocked if they cash another ticket for their backers here. All right, Sunflower State showdown. Kansas State. K-State 10-point home favorites, 55.5 the total in this one. I got to see more from Kansas. It was certainly a step in the right direction. Losing every game, losing so many heartbreakers, blowing leads left and right, finally get their first point spread cover in the win against Houston. I have to see more, though. Now you're going on the road here against a Kansas State team that, look, they're starting to turn things up. I've been very impressed with K-State. Giddens running the ball. Avery Johnson's getting better each week. And the defense is starting to really clamp things down. Early in the season, they were giving up some plays and points and some big yardage, but that defense now, that's 3 weeks in a row, or I should say 2 of the last 3 weeks where they've given up 20 or less. The Colorado game struggled a bit, but to win in Colorado was still a great win for Kansas State on the road. Now they're at home. They've been phenomenal on this home field. 31-7 over Arizona, 42-20 over Oklahoma State. I don't want to go against Kansas State at home. I think they're definitely the better team. And I think if you like Kansas, take them first half, because we know they've started games well. It's been finishing that's been a bit of an issue for them. But for me, and by the way, long term, I know last year Kansas was finally competitive with Kansas State, but Kansas State's won like double-digit number of games in a row over Kansas. They have completely dominated this series. So I don't know if I bet it, but I would lean to the favorite here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, they just own their ass. You mentioned the cover, but they just beat them. It's a big brother, little brother, especially at home, Snyder Stadium here. I've been most. I mean, I don't know how Kansas will stop K-State. This running attack is just where it's been at. I mean, it's tops. They've just been very, very good. The offensive line's been great. Giddens, Johnson running it. And, man, if he takes care of the ball, I think they win by more than 10 here. I think they could take care of business. I don't know what we get off the win for Kansas, off just a horror. I mean, great start. But Houston was they just seemed not into that. They just got slapped down 14-0 and all the turnovers.
Yep.
And can Kansas generate turnovers in this one? No way. I think K-State wins here. I'd actually look, their team total might be a look if you don't want to lay the 10.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would lay it here if I'm getting involved with Kansas. Daniels was better last. The offense was certainly better. Neal running the football too for Kansas, but Let's be honest. Houston played awful, and then it got worse for them once Donovan Smith came into the game. This is going to be a whole lot tougher, in my opinion, for this Kansas team. All right, next up, we've got Arkansas State and Mississippi, or Arkansas and Mississippi State. We've got Arkansas 7-point road favorites, 58 the total here in this game. Got to admit, I'm seeing a pulse here from Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and really the quarterback, the Van Buren boy, as I like to call him. Since they've put this guy in at quarterback, we really have seen some improvement here from the Mississippi State offense. Starkville, early start. Arkansas, very disheartening loss to LSU. And you can make a case Mississippi State could actually be live here in this home underdog role. Keep in mind, they've played Texas already this year, tough opponent. They played Georgia, and they played Texas A&M. They have played some of the best teams in the SEC, Mississippi State, here the last few weeks. And you look at them, they've covered 3 in a row against all those teams I just mentioned. And now they face Arkansas, who's not on those 3 teams level, Texas, Georgia, or Texas A&M. I think Mississippi State here, +7 home dog. I'm interested. And like I said, we have seen a pop and a spark in the offense with Michael Van Buren at quarterback. He's given them a little something. So I think they might be able to stay in this game here at home against Arkansas. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I think they can too. I've been it just like who they play, their strength of schedule.
Off the chart.
Van Buren, yeah, it's just all of a sudden where this offense couldn't do anything. I mean, just to think at home, looking back at that horrible loss to Toledo, things have changed. I think Arkansas could win this game. I'd look out of just freely laying the 7 in this one. One thing, I think Arkansas does have the better defense, but man, I don't know here. This is one that's tough. Mississippi State's played a lot better and covered some numbers lately where, man, this is like you get more than 10, I'd be all over this. But man,
run defense is so bad for Mississippi State. That's what does concern me. It's why I probably lean a little to the over here as well. But I think the offense is good enough.
Arkansas, though, I just and they can run it, obviously, but I don't know about here.
All right, Cincinnati and Colorado as we go to the Big 12 here. Colorado 4.5-point home favorites. The total sitting at 57.5 across the board in this game. I mean, starting to get a little bit of we're starting to see some improve here for and some real signs of progress here for Colorado and for Deion Sanders. This team is really starting to pick up their game. The defense is playing a little bit better. The offense right now, the last few weeks, and man, Shedeur Sanders playing very well. You got to give him that. He's taken a pounding all year, takes a licking, keeps on ticking, as I like to say. A 34-7 beatdown against Arizona. Yeah, they lost to Kansas State, but right in that game, they're now 5-2. They're still alive in the Big 12 race as well. So I'm impressed. They've covered 5 in a row, 5-0 ATS, Colorado, coming into this game. Cincinnati, they've been a surprise this year, a good one for Scott Satterfield. I didn't think much of this team, but a nice home win, 24-14 against Arizona State, but an Arizona State team last week that did have Jeff Sims, not Sam Levitt at quarterback. And to me, there is a drop-off when you go from Sam Levitt to Jeff Sims, but Cincinnati did take advantage of it. Sorsby was solid again. Kiner running the football. Cincinnati's got the offense, I think, to go into Colorado and score some points. I don't know if they've got the defense still, though, to deal with Shedeur Sanders and the Buffalo's offense going into this game. So I like the over. I don't think I trust Cincinnati fully, though, even getting 4.5. I don't think I want to step in front of Colorado either. So I like the over. I will be on the over. Nothing for me on the side as of yet, but I don't want to step in front of a Colorado team that has covered 5 straight and playing their best football right now. C-Mac, what do you think?
Both these teams. This one's tough for me. And I just think this might kind of be a tough spot for Cincinnati, but I'm not really gung-ho laying more than a field goal with Colorado, even how they've been playing better. But I think this is a game they could win and cover. But it's just when you have a defense like theirs, at home is where you want them here. And I think they could beat up on Cincinnati. But I've been impressed, even with the close loss to Texas Tech. They beat UCF. Just kind of workmanlike, this Cincinnati team. So I got to see more. And just those road games were impressive. I mean, even with Texas Tech staying tight and beating UCF, I don't know. Like when I looked at this initially, I like Colorado, but in the end, I don't know if I bet this one just because both teams have been very good. I can't really get an angle on this game.
All right, yeah, it should be a good one actually. One of the under the radar games.
And check the injuries here with
yes.
Colorado. The offensive line has played better. Yeah, they are still a bunch. And Hunter didn't look right. He played last week, but
he's playing through pain.
He's playing through pain.
Oh yeah. He's questionable for this game. Keep an eye on that. Jimmy Horn's good to go though, and that's important. He's a key cog. All right, West Virginia, Arizona, staying in the Big 12. Arizona 3-point home favorites. 55 being the total here in this game. I got to admit, I'm not going to be involved here. West Virginia has really fallen on hard times. Arizona can't get out of their own way. Disappointing season, really, for both of these teams. I'm not sure I'm excited about backing either one. 1 week the offense shows up, 1 week it doesn't for both of these teams. 1 week the defense shows up, 1 week it doesn't for both of these teams. I think it's side and total. It's a tough game. Pass for me. C-Mac, any thoughts?
Both these teams have been bad. I stayed off West Virginia after losing the week before, and they got that ass kicked again at home at night. They're just not a very good football team. I'm glad I stayed away from them.
Quarterbacks too, Fafita and Green. Neither one playing at the level we thought.
Man, playing down. The offense hasn't looked good. The defense hasn't looked much better in this one. Like, this is a game Arizona, I think, could win, but I don't buy anything that they're doing. And they're 1-6 ATS. I can't take anything here at all. I wish I had like more than the 3 maybe with West Virginia, because I think they're so close they can hang in this game. But I don't, at a field goal, it's just not something I want to be.
I actually lean under it, quite honestly. Yep.
Just how bad Arizona can't. I don't know. I told you this. I've talked about it for weeks, Benno. Just how there's just no plays. There's no downfield. It's like so vanilla. They run the ball. Like there's no get Fafita out, run it, do some. I don't know. Do something, some trick plays. I mean, this offense has just been dreadful to watch.
Yeah, 2 teams that have underachieved. There's no question, no denying that whatsoever there in that game. All right, Oregon State and Cal. We've got Cal 10-point home favorites, 49 the total. Yeah, we saw it last week against NC State. As much as I like things about this Cal team and Mendoza at quarterback and the defense, and I like Wilcox, it's never been his role as a bigger favorite. And we see it over and over again with Cal. They're just not good when they're laying bigger points. And sure enough, last week against NC State, it played out again. Can't lay these kind of points usually with Cal. They end up losing outright 24-23 to NC State as 9-point home favorites. This is just not the point spread role historically Wilcox has been very good in. Now, Oregon State is coming off a tough loss to UNLV, lost at Nevada before that. They've been competitive in every game, though, outside of the Oregon blowout loss. And Cal's a hard team to trust. And now they've lost 4 in a row to fall to 3-4 on the season. Oregon State defense is leaky still a little bit. Giovanni McCoy's been okay, though, as a dual threat quarterback for them. The question is, can they bring that effort here on the road after a tough loss last week against UNLV here on the road as a road underdog? That's going to be the question mark. But I would lean Oregon State. I'm just not fond of laying 10 with this coach and this program, and it's played out that way for years. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think the total's a little low. I'd kind of lean under. Cal has the better defense, but I mean, what a shit fourth quarter for this Cal team. I mean, they're up 23-10, and they just lose. I went back and saw it was just awful. And Bailey, a huge game. Yeah, all of a sudden they just played pretty good game. It's 23-10. They're just 2 touchdowns. Bailey started slinging it. He had 306 and 2 tutties. It was like, wow. Cal's better,
Bailey's
but
better
10 points.
State. He's getting better.
He is.
Quarterback.
He is getting better. Yep. But this team laying 10 is like they're better. But I think McCoy could do enough. Hankerson, and I have to take the 10 or nothing. Like I mean, this could be a game for Cal. Like last week was supposed to be the week for them. The homecoming, all this stuff, they're winning it, and I worry that can happen here with Wilcox as this big favorite. So yeah, I'm close here with Oregon State taking the 10.
Washington State, San Diego State. We've got the Aztecs, the Cougars rather, 14-point road favorites, 55.5 being the total in this game. Clear work in progress it's been this year for San Diego State on offense. And look, they bring in Sean Lewis from Kent State as former head coach at Kent State, former OC with Colorado under Deion Sanders for half the season last year. And he was going to go transform this offense from run heavy, slow pace to throwing the ball a lot more, playing extremely fast. And it's been a learning curve, but they're starting to get better. You're starting to see it. Early in the year, they were struggling with the change in system and scheme. But last couple games, the Hawaii game, the Wyoming game, they win both of those games. They've covered 3 in a row. They score 27 in those games. The offense is getting better. And I don't know. And remember, he doesn't really have the personnel to run this kind of offense yet, because a lot of these players are the holdover players that he inherited, including Danny O'Neal at quarterback. But they're starting to get better. They're playing the fast pace. Against Washington State, I think at home here, I think they can move the football and put up some points. I don't know if they're going to stop Washington State, though. The San Diego State defense is definitely it declined last year, and it's not very good this year either. And this might be one of the best offenses they've played. With all due respect, Oregon State, Hawaii, Wyoming, Central Michigan, Cal. San Diego State hasn't played a ton of great offenses. They're going to see one here with John Mateer and what the Cougars can do. I think there's a clear over spot at 55.5. I like the over. You're going to get pace. Both of these teams play fast. I like the over more than either side here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, one thing is 2 touchdowns. I kind of lean that way. I look at Washington State. It kind of goes with their team total. And this one, I haven't seen enough from San Diego State. They're playing better, like you mentioned. I don't know how much I believe in O'Neal, really. I mean, he's been better, but it's kind of the competition they played with. I remember just last week, looking at that game, like maybe can Hawaii hang around? I don't really want to play them off the island, and I didn't, but Washington State took care of business, 42-10, covered that 18. And they got a schedule where they win this, they could be 9-1, or something like 8-1, 9-1 here. So I kind of like the team total in the spot instead of laying the 2 touchdowns, because I do think they can get in the 30s.
Yeah, I agree. I think the over is a clear play. You're right. I lean a little to the Aztecs. They have covered 3 in a row, San Diego State. I like that. That tells you the betting markets have undervalued them a little bit, and they are starting to improve. Washington State, their defense is leaky enough that I'm not comfortable laying 2 touchdowns on the road with them. So I could lean to San Diego State maybe a little bit, but I like the over for sure more than anything else. All right, Wake Forest and Stanford next up. We've got Wake Forest. 2.5 point road favorites, 54 the total. I hate to say it, but I think maybe at this point, almost have to play Wake or pass the game. That's how bad things have gotten with Stanford. And I'm not fond of taking Wake Forest because, look, this is a bad defense, but they can move the football with Bachmeier in the offense, but Stanford's just been dreadful. They've had quarterback injuries. I don't think either quarterback is healthy, Lamson or Daniels at this point. The defense is getting absolutely ripped now. I know that defense is just they fought the good fight early in the season and they were hanging in there. But again, they're also getting injuries on defense, and Stanford doesn't have the depth. They just don't have the depth on that side of the football, and we're seeing it. Probably a Wake team total over or full game over. I would lean in those 2 directions. At the end of the day, I'm probably not laying points with Wake on the road, but difficult to get there with Stanford right now, C-Mac.
Man, this offense is just tough to watch. I mean, it's been a problem while, I just stopped even looking at their overs kind of last year. And even the one I think I like kind of the series. Oh, no, I did have the TCU.
Yeah.
That worked out. But I haven't wanted to touch it. They can't score, whether it's Daniels or Brown, Lamson. These quarterbacks are awful. Brown's 16-32, 153. 2 picks. They haven't been able to do anything. And at home, where you think a team, they just been the shits. Virginia Tech drubbed them, and they go to Notre Dame and get their ass whipped. I mean, and big win here for Wake Forest.
Destroys them last week. I mean, that's just been ugly.
Oh, they kicked their ass.
Yeah,
it's been really, really bad. One thing, Wake can still get shredded a little bit in the air. They were better, against the run against UConn. So I don't know how Stanford's going to do much. I mean, maybe this is the defense in Wake, but where they score 2-3 touchdowns. Ugh, this is just ugly, ugly, ugly. Pass.
Yeah, for me, it would be a Wake team total over, which I feel more comfortable
Maybe,
with.
but yeah.
That's how bad it is right now with that Stanford defense, I'm afraid. All right, next up, we've got
and they're still a horrible secondary. One of the worst. Nothing's really changed. So Wake Bach should have success. Maybe looked at maybe his prop. I don't know what it's going to be at, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely his passing yards prop could be worth a look here as well. All right, we're down to our final handful of games here. A lot of them are in the Big Ten, including this one, Penn State and Wisconsin. The Badgers, Penn State rather, 6.5 point road favorites in Madison, 48 the total here, Camp Randall on a Saturday night, by the way. This is a Saturday night game with Penn State and Wisconsin. Is it now Penn State? Obviously, very good season. And look, they've had some close calls. Illinois gave them a tough game. Bowling Green gave them a tough game. Certainly last USC a couple weeks ago, they had to come back and win that game 33-30 in the Coliseum. They're actually 0-3 against the spread, Penn State, in their last 3 games. So they actually haven't covered in 3 straight, but they're off a bye week. So that's a big benefit for Penn State here. But I will say this about Northwestern. Have they found something? Have they flipped a switch? Now, I know the problem with saying they flipped a switch is the competition hasn't been great. You've played Purdue, you've played Rutgers, who have fallen on hard times, and you've played Northwestern. But cumulative score of those 3 games, 117-16. They've beaten their opponents 117-16 in the last 3 games combined, Wisconsin, Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern. Now, this is obviously a huge step up in class, no doubt, going to this Penn State team now that you're playing. But Braden Locke is getting better, the quarterback spot. They're running the football with Tyree Walker. This Kekahuna at receiver playing well for them as well the last few weeks. They've got some weapons. And the defense has really improved from where it was early in the season. Like, they were giving up yards and giving up points to USC and Alabama, back in September. But that defense is really improving. And it's Saturday night in Wisconsin, and Penn State is suddenly finding themselves the last few games in some battles. And, they've only played on the road twice. They won and covered at West Virginia. That win doesn't look any good anymore because West Virginia has been a huge disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other road game for Penn State, they escaped by the skin of their teeth against USC, who have been struggling lately on defense. So I got a funny feeling this could be a game again and a battle that Penn State gets from this Wisconsin team. I'm leaning to the Badgers here a little bit. Bucky Badger as a home underdog. What do you think here, C-Mac? Penn State, Wisconsin.
I already like the 6.5. I want to get a 7 here because I'm going to be on them. Penn State is off the bye after the comeback win at SC. They do have, after this game, Ohio State. We all know that's the real one. They want to fucking the game.
The even bigger one. Yep.
Yeah. That's
tricky little spot, maybe. Yeah.
Tricky spot. Wisconsin, I haven't been on enough. Like, I've just been kicking myself the last few weeks against Rutgers, and even last week. Locke's been just good enough. I mean, he wasn't great, but Northwestern just couldn't move the ball. And Wisconsin, I think the defense has just been improving. I thought it was a solid defense coming into the year. And they got some solid linebackers in their secondary is good too. So at night here, yeah, I like them. I also lean under. I think this could be a low-scoring game, especially if this defense. I know you mentioned Northwestern, Rutgers, Purdue. Not murderers row, these last 3. But, man, I think this game, beware here.
Don't forget the USC game was turnover influenced in that game and for Wisconsin. And they were in that game, and then it fell apart for them.
They should have covered. And that was one of the worst for me.
The one that covered the number for USC at the end, Yeah,
it was the shits. And then they've just been dominating, and I've been like, the last few weeks. So I think this could be this Penn State offense. It's been sporadic. Man, like
Since they put up
who they
big
play.
numbers against West Virginia, and then in the second half they shredded USC once they started to get some injuries on defense. But other than that, they've been pedestrian this offense at times.
Very. I mean, Illinois and UCLA, solid teams at defenses, but 21 and 27, like nothing's flashy. Or Aller has just, it's been like, ho hum. They're all waiting for, I think, to play Ohio State because they get their ass kicked every year. So, but don't look at this one. These games have been pretty close between them. Usually it's a touchdown or less. That's why I kind of want the 7 here.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. This could be a little bit of a more dangerous game for Penn State than maybe they think. All right, Northwestern and Iowa. Iowa, rather, 13.5-point home favorites, 38 the total. I'm kind of tempted to take Northwestern. I know their offense is still a work in progress. You don't know what Jack Loss you're going to get week to week. I mean, he had the good game, of course. Well, Rutgers doesn't look so good considering what we're seeing from Maryland's defense, but he played well against Maryland a couple weeks ago. And then last week, big step back against Wisconsin, struggled in that game, 9 for 24. That's why I kind of think, look, Wisconsin can give Penn State a game because that Northwestern quarterback shredded Maryland and Wisconsin completely shut him down. So how will he fare? Now, Iowa still does have a pretty solid defense, but they're not as good as last year. I'm fully ready to say that now because Michigan State lights them up for 32.
Yeah.
That's not typical of this Iowa defense. Ohio State put up a big number on them. Their defense is no longer capable of carrying them. They need their offense to do enough, and their offense isn't always capable of doing that with McNamara and company. Now, they have to be able to run the football because Caleb Johnson's terrific for Iowa, but will Northwestern allow them to run the football? You look at Northwestern's numbers this year defensively, and they've been better against the run. It's the pass really that's shredded Northwestern more. So I think there's pathways for Northwestern to stay competitive here in this game. And I'm not laying 13.5 with Iowa here after what I saw last week against Michigan State. So I'm leaning to the Wildcats here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, because this Iowa offense, it's like, what are we going to get? At times they look better, like the Washington game. Of course, they don't do anything against Ohio State. Man, Northwestern just can't score. Like, I don't love it.
Northwestern, and this is last year too. They're bad home underdogs, but they're really good road underdogs.
These games, and these games are super close between these two for the most part. There's been a couple like 33-13, but these games normally, this is too many. Like Northwestern or nothing. I just saw their best half of football the first half against Maryland, and really the full game. But I was shocked. I was like, wow, what am I watching? Like, I haven't seen this team all year long. I forget that was like a Thursday or Friday night because that was the only game going on. Man, if they play like that, they're definitely covering this one. And this total's low. Like, I know I was 6-1 to the over, and this is low, but I can't take the over. I just can't do it. Man, I don't know. This seems like 17-10 all over it. But now who knows? This could just be that year with Iowa. These games get over. They've been getting over the number.
I mean, they're 6-1 to the over. I honestly can't bet under here, but it is Northwestern's offense. Can it work? It's worked better on the road. I lean over, actually, crazy as it is to say, but don't love it. I don't.
The points, and when I see 5 against Washington and even the 3 last week, I'm just like, losing that way where they're just like, team can't score is dreadful. Yeah, when you're like, just score. They just need a touchdown probably in this game or 2 and they cover this number.
No, that's true. There's no doubt. All right, next up, we've got Nebraska and Ohio State in Columbus. Ohio State 25.5-point home favorites, 48 the total. I mean, it's difficult to have faith in Nebraska now after what we've seen in some of these recent games. I mean, even the Rutgers, how bad does that look now? That Dylan Raiola and that Nebraska, how much has his stock plummeted here the last couple of weeks? I mean, they only score 14 points against Rutgers. Raiola has by far his worst game of the season there. And then last week in Indiana, they get absolutely steamrolled. 3 interceptions, terrible with the picks and the decision-making. They thought they had their future stud quarterback, and he's turned into a bit of a farce here the last 2 weeks. Raiola, he's played terrible these last 2 games. And if he plays like that, you're going to give the ball up 3 times from the quarterback position. And we saw the result, losing 56-7 to Indiana. Ohio State can make you look bad too. So difficult to endorse the underdog because now this is, evidence that they can't step up, especially on the road, this Nebraska team. And Matt Rule, we like a lot of things about him. We don't love his big game propensity lately, all of a sudden for this Nebraska team. So tough. It doesn't mean I'm going to take Ohio State, but I would lay it with Ohio State before I take Nebraska, especially with Ohio State off a bye, off the loss to Oregon in that heartbreaker, a chance to hit the reset button, come out storming, maybe Ohio State first half in this game to really take it to Nebraska early. But yeah, it's Buckeyes or nothing for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I can see Ohio State a little bit, maybe first half in this game. I love Nebraska here. What's going on? Because they have their win total under Savannah, and this is right when the schedule where I knew they'd start losing. And then they got UCLA, SC, Wisconsin. They're going to lose more, and I doubt they get over that. But Ohio State here, after the loss, they got to be just ready to rip. After the bye, after the tough loss back at home, Raiola, I'm just crowning him a little too early. We mentioned this off the top of the show. Playing some cupcakes. He's the next. He's Patty Mahomes Jr. So, yeah, I lay it or nothing here. I can't even take 25 in Nebraska.
No. And I mean, first half, to really come out strong after the Oregon loss and the bye week to really let that stew in their system, losing that game against Oregon, and then to, get ramped up here. The bye week came at a good time as well for Ohio State.
They got killed at Indiana. I mean, Raiola, those picks were awful in that game. And they just got steamrolled.
Yeah.
So I don't want them on the road. I just don't want it.
And Will Howard and company, I think, that offense is going to maybe have a good like that. And that Nebraska defense, the more I look, is starting to get overrated too. Like they give up points to Illinois, was the best offense they played.
They'd seen.
And they played Colorado, and Colorado was just beaten up on the offensive line for their one good defensive performance. And then the Illinois game, they got ripped apart. And then they played Indiana. They got just absolutely gashed start to finish. So that Nebraska defense, a lot of the shines come off that unit too the last few games. All right, Illinois and Oregon. Oregon 21.5 home favorites, 54.5 the total in this game. Illinois is a feisty, plucky little team, I'm telling you. I'm tempted by Illinois because I remember I took these kind of points against Penn State with this Illinois team, and they covered in that game. Not going to be easy, and Oregon, pretty impressive considering how they came out against Purdue's bad, but to, come off the big Ohio State win, short week, travel on a Friday night, and just be ready to just bury that Purdue team, shut them out 35-0. Pretty impressive from Oregon. Oregon after this has at Michigan. Illinois, meanwhile, 21-7 win against Michigan. The defense shut down that offense. Now, I am concerned about the defense against Oregon's speed, and that is still the concern I have with Illinois' defense overall. That defense hasn't faced the speed, the athletes, the talent on offense that Oregon is going to bring. What's the best offense they played so far? It's probably Penn State. They gave up 20. They were actually pretty solid there, but Purdue somehow got 49 against them, which was crazy. Nebraska moved the football against them, and we've seen Nebraska's offense kind of decline a little bit since then. So this will be a challenge for Illinois. I feel like with this game, 54.5, I feel like I should be on the over because if Oregon's going to cover, it's going to go over the total. So I feel like it's kind of an insurance policy to taking Illinois. Because if Illinois covers, it's probably going to be more of a lower scoring game because they're going to keep Oregon within arm's length. Luke Altmaier has to be good Luke Altmaier here. No turnovers, good ball security, good decision making. If he doesn't turn the ball over, he's had a solid year, believe it or not, for Illinois at the quarterback spot. Certainly a lot better than we've seen from Luke Altmaier in years past. And rely on just protecting the ball because you got to do that when you're playing in Eugene against this Oregon team. But I'm leaning north of 21. I'm leaning Illinois here in this one over as well. CMAC, Illinois, Oregon.
Yeah, geez. I know it was Purdue, but kind of all year long, I've been impressed with Oregon's defense. I know that these teams have been the best, and of course, in the Ohio State game, we all talked about just back and forth, two great teams, two good offenses.
They take the air out of football with a big lead, too, Oregon. That's another.
Oh, yeah.
Last week.
Shit.
Tick, 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 that clock, run it.
they just super slow. I mean, yeah, everything, and they've done it all year. That's why the back doors, and I think that could happen here.
Yeah.
Altmaier last week was a little bit was Illinois was able to run it kind of on Michigan. I mean, they were very successful. Altmaier didn't do anything to the air. He had 80 yards. So he's got to be better here. And of course, when it's a game like this, turnovers, you can't turn the ball over at all. So I think the back door could be open. I lean a little bit to Illinois. That was a huge win. I loved it last week, but I don't know about here. It's just Oregon. You're right. Once they get up 28-7 or something, it's just like,
That's probably good for
half.
Illinois plus 21.5 in this game because they don't look like a team that's really going for the killer jugular, extra touchdown.
Yeah.
Well, Purdue was that bad that eventually they got it last week, but they didn't really try for it.
Yeah, I'd say this game's just a little bit different, but Oregon has been money first half.
Yeah.
Like even last week when it was a flat spot, they still just went up 21-0 on Purdue, even though and they kind of done it all year against these teams early at least. Michigan State, UCLA. Yeah.
I'm looking right now. Yeah, they're 4-0 ATS as underdogs this year, Illinois. Kansas,
I've been on 3
Nebraska,
times.
Penn State, Michigan. Covered all those games as underdogs. And look, Michigan State covered as a dog at Oregon a few weeks ago. And Oregon, once they were up big, they just called off the dogs. It's exactly what happened. So I think even if Illinois doesn't play great and doesn't hang with them for 4 quarters, they could still get inside this number because Oregon just doesn't go to run things up. They just haven't been doing that. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested in Illinois here, plus 21.5. All right, final game. Nevada and Hawaii. We've got Nevada 2.5-point road favorites, 47.5 the total. This is your bailout special, Saturday night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific in Hawaii. They've been a disappointment, Hawaii. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, I expected a little more from Timmy Chang's team and certainly Braden Shager in the offense, which has, to be honest with you, we know defense has been rough for Hawaii the last few years. And obviously they struggled with Washington State, struggled a bit with Boise. But the offense has been the even bigger concern. We were expecting this team to at least be able to put up points this year, and it's not happening. They only scored 10 against Wazoo, 7 against Boise State. Shager's been mediocre at best. The offensive line has not played great. He's taken a pounding in a lot of these games, too. The offensive line for Hawaii hasn't performed well, and all of that's concerning. We'll see if they can right the ship here. 2 straight. Now, they have lost to tough teams, the last 2, Boise and Washington State. Back home, we'll see how they fare. Nevada lost 24-21 to Fresno. Let's see how they fare here in this one. This is now their 3rd true road game of the season. Well, 4th. They actually beat Troy, but Troy's way down. Shut out by Minnesota, lose to San Jose State. I feel like we're getting Hawaii at a real bargain here. And like the power rating and the number has dropped on Hawaii because of their struggles. And now because of that, we are getting them as a slight home underdog. There's no way before the season anyone had Hawaii as a home underdog in this spot to the Nevada Wolfpack. There's just no way, based on preseason expectations, that Nevada wasn't going to be very good. Hawaii was going to be better, and it's been the opposite. Nevada's exceeded market expectations, and Hawaii's been the big disappointment. But I think here at home, as a home under, I got a sneaking suspicion Hawaii might be the move here, might be the way to go in this game. I'm leaning Hawaii. I don't love it, but I'm leaning Hawaii here. And look, Nevada, that loss against Fresno might be a sign of things to come, that maybe their best football has already been played, and they're not going to quite play that way in the second half. And I'm still not the biggest fan of their quarterback, the Colorado transfer, Brendan Lewis. He's still very erratic, in my opinion. So I'm leaning Hawaii. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, he has. That was tough. A gettable game, which you talked about last week, but a tight number, depending on what you got there. Could have went a whole bunch of ways with Fresno. Nevada has been I don't know, their defense has been good at times, and it's got their ass kicked at times. But Hawaii has not scored like you talked about. It's just been, this offense has been so bad. Like even that game against Boise,
here, believe it or not.
You
never know if the wind starts kicking up in Hawaii too at this time of night. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch that for sure. And these games used to be wild in the way past and in the 60s. Yeah, we got, this early forecast, but 15 to 20. There used to be in the 60s, but this in 10 of the last meetings all under. Now,
I know, 10 straight
last
unders.
year 27, 10 straight under. That's pretty wild. When I saw that earlier this morning, I put a note down. And Hawaii just doesn't score. Like, is Hawaii at home gonna score all of a sudden? Like, maybe even their team total, but I don't know if I have a trust in Nevada's defense because it's just kind of been hit and miss. But is Hawaii, can they score 20 points here? Like, I don't think so. Like, I was leaning just to this under. I mean, it's not like the favorites look, but 47 and a half. That's where I'd be. Hawaii's just been slow. And the defense has actually not been dreadful. I know they gave up 42 last week. They're just like, they lost to Sam Houston. They gave up 31. They've kind of they're not great, but maybe they're not god awful. And this offense in Nevada has just been kind of hit and miss too with Lewis. Depending on if they run it, they will have success. But I don't know how much Nevada will do here. Interesting game. Yeah, high winds and on the island, always tricky. And I always want to back Hawaii. It's like them or nothing there. This line though is telling. I wish this was a little higher. Even over the field goal, Bavana. They like Hawaii, but only 2.5 here.
It's worth noting the last 2 years, and I think these were both Timmy Chang years, Nevada, Hawaii. Now, it's been 10 unders, but a lot of the times there was more than 50 points and the totals were higher.
Oh, there were 60s.
But the last 2 years, 47 points last year and only 47 points 2 years ago and 41 points between the two teams last year. So that would be good.
The number, I like it's right.
Yeah, they're
right though here. I wish this was higher. I love this. If this was like 50, 51, but they know what they're doing here. The line's sharp.
Yep.
I think.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, we expect that now midway through the season. Lines are going to be a little bit more sharper. Odds makers are going to be on their game a little bit more, and maybe we're seeing that here. So Connor Mack leaning under. I'm leaning Hawaii here with the late night special on Saturday. There you have it. Another week of hitting the books right here on this College Football Hitting the Books YouTube channel every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to sprinkle in some college basketball shows and content in a few weeks as well when college basketball begins. So stay tuned for schedule on that. We'll have some details probably next week regards to that. Shout out to everyone in the chat. I already mentioned everybody before, but I'll mention a couple that have stepped in lately. Nunya, of course, and Goryan Ninkovsky. Appreciate the kind words. Hit the like button if you haven't done so. Thanks for watching. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X. Appreciate you joining us each and every Monday for the College Football Hitting the Books show. C-Mac, final thoughts before we say goodbye.
Yeah, another great week. I need a big week, college football. I think we're going to get it this week. Shout out to everyone, like you said, that's joined us. Hit the like button on your way out. And hit us in the games. Hit us with, like I said, the comments on games. Ask us questions. I'll try to answer them. Do that. I love doing that. Answer it. Helps out the algorithm as well. And subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Tell your dads, brothers, mother's uncle, whatever, to come subscribe to Hitting the Books, because that's all we really want, because we want to keep bringing you these shows.
Yeah, no question. We appreciate it very much, the support, and the channel is building. We're up over 300 subscribers. Keep on, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button with everything on the channel. We appreciate it very much. And like I said, we're going to have college basketball, part of this Hitting the Books channel as well, in just a few weeks from now. Thank you for everyone tuning in, to all of you. Appreciate you joining us and tuning in each and every week. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great week. Enjoy college football week 9. Enjoy the games and good luck. Cash some tickets, and we will be back with you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of College Football Hitting the Books. Until then, class dismissed.